You're watching the RAC British Grand Prix live on ITV. Murray Walker's seen every one, dating back to 1948. Martin Brundle's driven in this race a dozen times. He knows every twist and turn of Silverstone, and he once had a great scrap with Michael Schumacher here. First, the voice of Formula One. It's Hugh Murray.
Thank you, Jim. And as you can all see, and as you've all heard in the past hour, it is a fabulous day here at Silverstone. Remember what it was like last year? Grey, wet, miserable. The crowd were still here in their tens of thousands, 200,000 of them. Incidentally, that's Olivier Panis's car being removed from the grid. He's just rushed back to the garage to get into the spare car. But the crowd here today is a wonderful, colourful sight. I had the pleasure of driving Damon Hill and Heinz-Harald Frentzen round in a magnificent 1921 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost on the parade this morning, and the crowd gave Damon an absolutely fantastic reception. The horns were blowing, the famous Damon Hill caps were being waved at him, the Union Jacks, that you can see in the background there, were fluttering all around the circuit. And incidentally, the fact that the flags are standing out from their flag poles as proudly as they are is a very significant feature in this race, because the cars are very sensitive aerodynamically. Rubens Barrichello has been complaining a lot about problems with the Stewart because of the way the wind has been affecting it. It could actually affect the race a bit.
Yes, I think it will. I think it's going to be more of strategy, though, Murray, and exactly when to stop, how many times to stop. I know James has covered that earlier on in the programme. I certainly endorse what he said. Difficult to read because last year, with the groove tyres, of course, it was wet, so they're on full wets for the race. So we've got no idea of, we can't use last year as a barometer. The year before, the top runners two-stop, but I think it was Berger did a great job one-stopping in the Benetton, but I think they probably had more grip and more durability there with the setup that they had and the regulations as they were then. So I'm really expecting any key player today to be two-stopping.
Well, we've heard a lot about Damon, and you're going to hear a lot more, but let's not forget that there are 21 other drivers in this race, not the least of whom is Mika Häkkinen, who is leading the World Championship from Michael Schumacher by 8 points, and Mika Häkkinen is on magnificent form here. We've had 4 practice sessions and the qualifying session and the warm-up this morning, and Mika Häkkinen was fastest and comfortably fastest in all of those sessions. Michael Schumacher this morning in the warm-up was 0.7 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen, second fastest. Not terribly happy with the balance of his car, and he said they got a lot of work to do on it before the race began. David Coulthard, who you saw talking to Martin, was third quickest this morning and looks to be in very good shape indeed. He was 0.5 seconds slower than Mika Häkkinen, and Eddie Irvine was 6th quickest this morning. Now there is the Prost garage. You've just seen that dramatic shot of a very frustrated and impatient Olivier Panis there. That's his wife in the background, and a very worrying time for him. Have you had this happen?
Yeah, too many times, unfortunately. It would either be some kind of fluid, hydraulic or water oil leak on the line, or indeed an electronic problem, is the information we're getting back from the F1 ITV pit crew.
Well, he's meant to be,
if he's going to jump into the spare car, I mean, you saw him clapping his hands, trying to get rid of the nervous energy there. That means he's got to start from the pit lane, and it's not going to hurt. He was 15th on the grid, so it's not the end of the world for today, but it effectively puts his chances of points out of the window. And it is frustrating. I mean, they were here 4 days testing last week. They've been here 4 or 5 days this week. You build up to a crescendo, and it just falls flat at the last moment, and very difficult to cope with.
On Friday, Trulli in the other Prost had the rear suspension break, and Panis didn't get any time on the track at all that day because they had to send the parts back to be checked and strengthened.
Yeah, we also understand that the spare car is not set up for Panis, so they've got to try and fix his. Otherwise, it'll be 10 or 12 minutes to change the pedals, seat belts, and everything to get Panis in that car, and they don't have that amount of time.
Riding with Damon Hill round Silverstone, We're going to try and stay with him for the whole lap so that you can see what it's like from his point of view in the Jordan Mugen Honda. And incidentally, they've got a revised spec, much better Mugen Honda engine. They've got a lighter, narrower gearbox. The Jordan has never been better. And Damon is starting 6th on the grid, 4th fastest this morning.
Yes, I don't think the overall car is any lighter. They'd have to reballast it, but at least they can put the ballast in the floor of the car, lowers the centre of gravity. And if you're cornering it up to 4G and 160, 170 miles an hour as you are around here, every little bit helps. But there's a job to be done on the warm-up lap here. Your brain has got to be in gear. Your left foot needs to be on the brake pedal. You need to build up 400 or 500 degrees centigrade in those brakes. Try and keep the tyres up to temperature and therefore pressure all the way around. So you've got a half a chance when you turn into the first corner and have to jump on the middle pedal and slow the car down.
So out of club up towards Abbey, the left and right here, which used to be one continuous left-hand sweep. It's slowed down a lot. But then they go up to Bridge. You can see the red bridge across the track as I talk to you now. It is an absolutely fabulous corner, which they take at about 155, 160 miles an hour. You'll see the magnificent new British Racing Drivers Club clubhouse as Damon takes the left-hander at Priory and then Brooklands. There it is, you see, with the scalloped roof just disappearing out of your picture on the right now. Wonderful vantage point.
Yeah, Silverstone has never looked better. Eat your heart out, Brands Hatch.
So out of the right-hander at Woodcote onto the starting grid for the British Grand Prix with Mika Häkkinen up there in front of us. We're riding with Damon Hill, 6th on the grid. In front of us is his teammate Heinz Harald Frentzen, the winner of the French Grand Prix, in spite of the fact that he'd got a broken kneecap, and he's repaired now. Heinz Harald Frentzen is in good shape and in good heart. Ron Dennis there in the Benetton garage. I don't know what on earth Ron Dennis is doing in the Benetton garage. That is very much a first for ITV and Silverstone and everybody else. Damon Hill, so now, look forward, that is Eddie Irvine, or that was Eddie Irvine, and as you look at the grid on the right, it's Mika Häkkinen in pole position.
Häkkinen got his car slightly skewed towards Michael Schumacher. I think he wants to repay the compliment of Canada, where Schumacher sliced across in front of him, but you want to be on the left-hand side of this racetrack for the first corner without any doubt.
So there is...
Listen to them, they're all...
That's Johnny Herbert and Villeneuve in front of us, and it is go at Silverstone now. Nice one, Häkkinen. Schumacher's got David Coulthard right alongside him, and somebody left.
2 cars stalled, 2 McLarens at the front. Tremendous getaway from both Häkkinen and Coulthard, but 2 cars left on the grid. Quite a long lap here. They've got 90 seconds, let's say, to get those cars out of the way. Lots of little slip roads where they can put them, so I think we should be all right to stay under green flag conditions, Murray.
I think one of the Zanardi and the 2 Ferraris fighting each other. Eddie Irvine coming, the red flag, the race is being stopped. The race is being stopped as it was last year, but for very...
That's Schumacher, isn't it? I think that's Schumacher not realising that he's probably, I suspect, somebody slowed down under reds, and Michael's come across him at a great rate of knots. Has he hurt his legs? I don't think he should have done. He's hit those tyres, although at quite a rate of knots, but Michael's struggling to get out of the car a little bit. I wonder if he's hurt his legs. Look, front wheel, front left off, front right. Michael's slamming the steering wheel. I don't know whether it's through frustration that he's out of the race, or frustration because he knows he's injured something.
Well, whatever, Michael Schumacher at best will have to run back and get in the spare car for a restart, but it looks as though that is most certainly not the case. The car is jammed well and truly. I was disgusted, incidentally, to see some spectators in front of me standing up and clapping their hands and cheering as they saw that on the big screen. This is not at all funny.
I fear Michael Schumacher's damaged his legs in some way. So he clearly is not in serious risk overall, but I fear that he's got some kind of damage to his right leg, because Once the steering wheel is off, there's plenty of room to get out of those Formula One cars. So Michael slammed the steering wheel as he went in the wall. I thought initially it might be because, oh, how did this happen? I'm out of the race already.
Yes.
But I think it might be more than that. I wonder, we'll see a replay, I wonder if one of the McLarens lifted off for the red flag and Michael may not realise it or something like that. Or, remember, he was trying to pass Eddie Irvine going down Hanger Straight. I think Irvine beat him off the line.
Well,
and,
needless to say, there is acute misery in the Ferrari. You saw Jean Todt looking very concerned as he looked at the screen, and now Michael Schumacher is being lifted out of the car. That is a very unhappy Ross Brawn, who is the technical director.
A collar on Michael Schumacher's neck, but that's standard procedure now, so I don't think...
well, for sure, I think Michael Schumacher is not going to be taking the restart, and you could be seeing the end of his World Championship chances for 1999, and no one would have wanted it to end this way. Is
that Stowe gravel trap, I think, Murray? We haven't actually seen him other than spearing across the gravel trap. It is Stowe gravel trap. So they go in there about 190 miles an hour. And, well, the left front is already on. I wonder if he contacted with Irvine or if the McLaren... Because looking back down the field, one of the stewards had lifted off and cars diving round him. Drivers perceive and understand and react to a red flag situation at different times, and of course the closing speed then just becomes absolutely enormous. I don't really see why they put the red...
Let's have a look again. They're coming down to Stowe, and Eddie Irvine was right alongside Michael Schumacher.
Oh, he's locked his inside. Oh, he's locked his brakes. It's as simple as that. It's a mistake. Look, and now he can't slow down. A simple driving mistake there from Michael Schumacher. Snatched the front brakes. This often happens when the temperatures are not high enough. Look, and he gets in Irvine's slipstream, pulls up on the inside, which is the correct line. Irvine not really fighting him off, and then Michael snatches a brake, look, and then snatches both of them, panics, and just stays on the pedal straight to the scene of the accident, and that is a big impact, Murray.
Yeah, at a very considerable speed. When you approach Stowe very quickly indeed, even on that lap. He approached it at about 190 miles an hour. He would have lost a lot of speed, but as you can see, he still went in with a colossal bang.
Yes, he's gone through all three layers. We're going to see it from Damon Hillsbury now. He goes through all 3 layers of the tyres and connects with the barrier. So he's had something like a 20 or 30 G deceleration.
Yeah, and a nasty shock for Damon, of course, seeing that in front of him. A great cloud of tyre smoke as it locks up on the tarmac and goes straight. You see the tyre marks as straight as a tramway, straight across the gravel, straight into the tyres.
This is the problem with the gravel. It really is to stop a car that's spinning, so that it can dig in a little bit. Because of the undertray, the flat undertray, Murray, of the modern Formula One car, it just toboggans across the top, and as you saw, no deceleration whatsoever, no way of changing the trajectory of that car.
I am very, very unhappy to see these pictures. A truly great driver, a double world champion, has been taken out of this race and obviously injured. James Allen, what's the news?
Well, it's a somber and absolutely stunned atmosphere actually down here at Ferrari. They can't quite believe it's happened. There's absolutely no raw emotion, there's no rushing around or panicking. They're just sort of saying, what happened? And they're blinking their eyes and sort of not quite sure what to do with themselves. I think they're not expecting Michael Schumacher to have an incident like this. It's very, very big impact, as you were saying, Martin. And there is some speculation amongst us pit reporters that maybe the throttle stuck open at that point, but Ferrari are not sure. Obviously, Michael didn't have time to get on the radio as he was heading towards the Armco barriers, but a very big impact. Certainly, he'll be taking no further part in the race. And back to you, Murray.
I find it very hard to believe that Michael Schumacher made a mistake, a tremendously experienced driver.
But remember what I was saying before, though, Murray, the temperatures of the brakes and the tyres are not fully up. You've done that warm-up lap, but you still can't get them where you need them. And by and large, that is the first major braking area of the lap. So it's possible, it's very easy to snatch. He snatched one brake first rather than... I think if his throttle had stuck, he'd have had all 4 wheels locked up.
Eddie Irvine, a worrying time for him too. So Eddie Irvine sitting, waiting in the Ferrari for the restart, which will obviously take quite a long time. they're going to have to take Michael Schumacher away on the stretcher. Let's have a look at it again.
Here we go again. Michael coming
Schumacher
up
on the left, Eddie Irvine on the right.
Irvine giving him no problem, but Michael blocks the right front and then blocks them both when he realises he's going straight on. And look, now you see both front wheels stopped. Well, I think if the throttle had been stuck open, the rear wheels would have been spinning all the way in, and I'll have another look at that next time. But
well, here it is again.
I'm pretty certain it's a snatched brake.
Yeah, let's hear it. Here it is again. Michael Schumacher on the inside. You see, so Eddie Irvine had already got ahead of him as they turn in for the corner. Michael locks up and straight as an arrow skates over the top of the gravel trap. There's been a lot of talk about turning these big gravel traps, which don't seem to stop the cars at all, into a concrete area in the belief that they would offer more resistance to locked wheels and tyres, and the driver could even spin the car out of trouble. Mika Häkkinen there, and
I wonder why the red flag and not the safety car. I guess because the safety car can't pick the cars up until after they've crossed the start-finish line.
There's the answer. They are still around.
No, I mean, but why did they throw the red in the first place? Well, because I think this accident happened before the red flag went out, probably. But clearly, before they can pick up the drivers.
There's Michael Schumacher's wheel and suspension off the Ferrari, which gives you an indication of the severity and the impact of the hit as the front of the car went into the tyre wall. I am not at all happy seeing these pictures. The crowd is totally subdued, as indeed you would expect them to be. They came here for a day of joy and pleasure to follow motor racing at its very highest level, and you don't expect this to happen. And seeing those sheets go up to stop people looking at what is happening to Michael Schumacher on the stretcher reminds me of past situations I don't even want to think about, to be quite honest. And
but I mean, he's not had any head injuries or anything. I mean, he was talking about, he was looking down in the right hand at his right hand leg. I suspect that a bit of suspension has come in the cockpit, and they're mounted inside the cockpit, although they're boxed in.
Yes.
And they are protected to stop the wishbones. Many times racing drivers have had the wishbone and the suspension piercing their leg, and I fear that's what may have happened to Michael. There was some dust coming off the rear tyres as he's skating across the gravel trap. I still don't believe it was a stuck throttle, but we'll find out later on.
Well, we'll know later. Meantime, no effort to remove the car, and understandably so, because first of all they have to move Michael himself, get him away from where he is now into more advanced medical facilities. The first stop may be the Silverstone Medical Centre, which is probably the most advanced and best equipped in the world. There are a very large number of doctors here, and the medical centre is fully equipped, but it's more likely, if he's got leg damage, that they would take him away by helicopter to Northampton Hospital, where presumably there are even better facilities. As you can see, the car's now reforming on the grid. We've already seen Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard there discussing obviously what happened to Michael Schumacher. There's a significant gap on the grid there with Mika Häkkinen's car in pole position. The gap where, there is Michael Schumacher being removed from the gravel trap.
He's waving, look, that's Schumi with his arm up in the air saying,
well, thank heavens
not too bad.
No, thank heavens for that. That is more of a relief to me than I can tell you, to see that he's obviously conscious, and to the extent that he possibly can be in these circumstances, comparatively happy with the way he's being looked after.
The sheets are to protect him from the indignity of cameras close up and photographers zooming in and getting shots of him not looking and feeling too good. But I think I'm expecting this is going to be restricted to some right leg damage.
Yes, so very often in the past we've had situations not unlike this, and then we've discovered afterwards that the damage is comparatively minor, and let's all keep our fingers crossed and hope that that is the case here with Michael Schumacher, as he's now in the ambulance ready to be driven away to those medical facilities I was talking to you about, and I don't know whether he's going to the Silverstone Medical Centre or elsewhere.
Well, he's had some pretty mighty shunts, has Michael, but I don't recall him breaking anything.
Never anything like this. He's never hurt himself. No, he had a massive one in Belgium one year. I remember he went backwards into the tar wall. He had one or two big ones in the Benetton as well.
Yeah, Suzuka. I remember one of his early races in '91 where he was using Piquet's car and stuck it in the wall backwards.
It's a reminder of the fact, Martin, that a lot of people look very lightly on motor racing and think it isn't hazardous and dangerous anymore. It is. Everything is done that possibly can be done to make the cars and the circuits safe. There's a safety commission led by Professor Sid Watkins, who's the top medical man, and he's here and will be responsible for Michael Schumacher. But no matter what you do, you can make motor racing safer, but you can never make it safe. And Charlie Whiting there on the left, being driven by Alex Ribeiro, the Brazilian ex-Formula 3 driver in the Mercedes-Benz safety car, and I think it's a good time for us to leave Silverstone for a while and take a break.
99. Dicevamo che era stato introdotto e poi mollato, non è più stato utilizzato uno spessore di gomma di 1 centimetro da mettere all'esterno delle gomme. Ecco, questo forse avrebbe potuto fare qualche cosa in più.
L'ambulanza se ne va veramente a un ritmo bassissimo, molto piano, molto piano. È presto per avanzare ipotesi, attendiamo chiaramente, rinnovo il mio invito al nostro inviato Biagio Maglienti, che è nella corsia box in questo momento. Gli rinnoviamo l'invito di farci sapere tutto ciò che verrà a sapere in qualsiasi istante. È un momento di drammaticità altissima, abbiamo tutti lo stomaco chiuso. È successo qualcosa di certamente grave ai danni di Michael Schumacher, che a metà del primo giro del Gran Premio di Gran Bretagna è andato a picchiare a una velocità enormemente elevata contro le protezioni e purtroppo non è riuscito a uscire dall'abitacolo. Replay in super regia del via, sbaglia la partenza Schumacher, parte comunque piano alla sua sinistra. Ecco David Coulthard che si infila alle spalle di Mika Häkkinen e persino Eddie Irvine lo supera all'esterno e se ne va terzo. Vediamo immediatamente cosa succede. Dritto Michael Schumacher, questo è il lungo rettilineo che porta alle doppie curve delle Chapels, le curve le fa tutte tranquillamente, sterzata normalissima.
E qui sbaglia Irvine. Irvine è andato fuori traiettoria, quindi ha fermato Mika Häkkinen. Mika Häkkinen a questo punto, Michael Schumacher, scusate, aveva più velocità. C'è uno scambio di posizioni. Irvine adesso passerà all'interno e Schumacher aveva qualche chilometro orario in più di velocità. Vedremo. Fa una frenata ritardata, però a questo punto è nella pista sporca, fuori traiettoria, va a bloccare le gomme. Vediamo che qui inizia la frenata, inizia a correggere, blocca l'anteriore destra, poi l'anteriore sinistra
e non gira la ruota destra non gira.
È vero,
la ruota destra non prende direzionalità, gli manca completamente la direzionalità interna alla curva. Rottura di qualche cosa all'avantreno della Ferrari, è indubbio, si vede chiaramente, probabilmente il tirante dello sterzo ha ceduto, si gira la ruota sinistra nella curva verso destra, non quella destra, la direzionalità della Ferrari viene a mancare quasi completamente.
Back at Silverstone, there is obviously going to be a very substantial delay to the restarting of the British Grand Prix. You are watching now the ambulance, which contains Michael Schumacher, going back to the medical facilities. So while all that is happening and while we're waiting for the tyre wall to be repaired, which will take time, with Mika Häkkinen and other drivers in the car, Martin?
We're getting some information, or it's possible that he had a steering problem, and that as he was turning into the corner, when we watch the replay again, there is a slight movement in the car on the way in, but it's possible that he had some kind of steering malfunction that enabled the car to keep going straight, and that's why he ended up jumping on the brakes. So we don't know for sure. What I have just seen is them inspecting a piece of the front of the monocoque of the car that includes the pedals. So it's broken a bit like an egg, and now I can see why Michael's almost certainly got lower leg damage, because the monocoque has, it's not just the nose that we're looking at, it's the front of the monocoque where Michael's feet go into.
Yes, indeed, and steering column, of course, has eerie overtones of what allegedly happened, and I emphasize the word allegedly, to Ayrton Senna at the San Marino Grand Prix d'Imola in 1994. But let's tell you what's happened as the ambulance draws up to the medical centre. The race started, and an excellent start from Mika Häkkinen, with David Coulthard going into second position. Round Copse Corner, the first right-hander, and through the wonderful complex of bends down at Beckett's on the way to Stowe Corner. Then Eddie Irvine came up on the outside of Michael Schumacher. There are the tyre marks that you can see, because Michael Schumacher's locked up. You can see both front wheels there, the right and the left, locked up straight across that gravel track, which is absolutely unmarked, and as far as I know, it has not been raked or changed in any way. We're going to show you again what happened while that tyre wall that you see at the bottom of your screens, into which Michael Schumacher went. Now, here are the two Ferraris. On the right is Eddie Irvine, on the left is Michael Schumacher. Right front locks up, left front locks up, straight on, no deviation at all, into the tyre wall at a massive speed, from an approach speed before he braked of about 190 miles an hour.
Well, he certainly began to turn the first part of the corner, so he didn't arrive at the end of the straight with the steering locked, for example. It is a power steering system on these. They're normally, I have to say, pretty bulletproof. Let's watch it again. He starts to go into the corner, and this is where the loads transfer across the front suspension to, and that's why you tend to snatch the inside. The car's a bit of a strange shape as it first turns in, but without doubt did turn in. But there is no further attempt to turn the wheel, but I have to say, we all know it's virtually pointless to do that anyway.
Well, let me remind you that after the marshals were on the scene very, very quickly indeed, another indication of how good the British marshals are. And there's Schumacher, you see, helping himself out of the car with his arms like a bullet into the tyre wall. But he was conscious enough and with it enough and banging on the wheel there.
Yes, he's thrown the steering wheel out, and then he bangs on the monocoque. I don't know whether it's in pain. That looks to me
more like pain than frustration, to be honest.
I'll take your word on that. It's difficult to know, but there, the front of that car is very short. Look, we have seen a piece of the front of that monocoque, and then the nose and front wing goes on front of that. And it's similar to Panis's accident in Canada
when he broke both his
last
legs.
year, when
Yes.
When the front of the monocoque broke a little bit like an egg and did some damage.
Well, these cars are tremendously strong. Carbon fibre tubs and many other units in the car are made out of this very light but enormously strong material. But nothing can stand major impacts of that magnitude.
If you make them too much stronger, the driver's body can't stand the impact after that. They have to deform in some way. There will be a new formation lap at 1:40.
And I was going to say, it's good to remind you that when Michael Schumacher was being taken away from the accident on the stretcher to be put into the ambulance, he was waving his hand, presumably as an indication of the fact that I'm conscious, folks, and think well of me, as we all do. So, new formation lap at 13:40. Well, that is 12 minutes from now. More news from James Allen.
Murray, I'm down at the medical centre here. You saw Michael Schumacher waving his arm, so he obviously, as you say, wasn't that severe. The earliest bulletin so far is that he has got damage to both of his legs, but the extent of that damage is not yet known. Just a few more minutes' time. Heiner Buchinger, his press assistant, has just gone into the medical centre, and also Balbir Singh, who is Michael's physical trainer, does all his physical training exercises, and I'm expecting them to come out in a couple of minutes' time and give me an update. And as soon as I have it, you will have it too.
Thank you, James. Well done. It's nice to know that you're on the spot there, because you know everybody and will be able to get the information as quickly as is possible. And without wishing to seem too downcast, I hope that this does not mean that Michael Schumacher is out for the rest of the season. We've still got a lot of races to go. This is only halfway through the championship, 8 out of 16 races. We'll tell you more when we come back from this break.
Play, lo ripeto ancora una volta in diretta, David Coulthard che attende. Beh, credo che anche la dinamica di questo incidente aumenti la preoccupazione per quanto riguarda appunto le condizioni di Schumacher. Qui vediamo proprio il fratello che ha deciso di sua spontanea volontà di uscire, tra l'altro
di andare a informarsi.
Mi pare di aver visto anche Alesi passare, non vorrei sbagliare, perché per un attimo mi sono distratto, non ho guardato
le immagini della macchina che ci avete dato mostrano che tutta la parte anteriore è saltata via, quindi indubbiamente avrà delle ferite alle gambe. Io non so se sono rotture o ferite, penso più a ferite ed è per questo che ho visto i dottori agire immediatamente sopra al pilota, probabilmente per suturare delle ferite che sanguinavano, penso io.
Mauro, ci è stato comunicato che la gara riprenderà alle 14:40 perché proprio nella zona dell'incidente di Schumacher ora sta per essere ripristinata l'area di fuga e soprattutto tutta la protezione in pneumatici. Qui abbiamo Jean Alesi, vedete in primo piano, poco fa dettagli invece relativi a Ed Irvine, quindi quella tuta Sauber che ho visto sfrecciare per un attimo le spalle di Schumacher non era evidentemente il pilota francese. Potrebbe anche essere così perché vedete che proprio in questo momento Jean rientra, era nell'area box, Panis che chiede indicazioni a Jean Alesi. Insomma c'è grande preoccupazione da parte dei piloti, è chiaro che tutti sono grandi, seri professionisti, però
Schumacher per loro è un leader.
Sì, resta un faro insomma, sotto ogni punto di vista, e questo è un dato importante. Tra l'altro vedo che gradualmente stanno rientrando anche i segnali, noi abbiamo delle linee di servizio, quindi direi per il momento teniamo la linea in attesa che tutto rientri gradualmente, che ci sia l'ok da parte della regia per cedere la voce, non solo le immagini ai nostri inviati che senz'altro hanno anche notizie di prima mano, però lo ripeto, la gara riprenderà alle 14:40.
Again, they're rebuilding the tyre wall, as you can see for yourselves.
Yeah, Murray, that's not just a bunch of old remolds thrown up against the wall there. They're very specifically stacked and bolted together, and then bunches of 4 strapped together, and then occasionally also what they call a conveyor belt, a big rubber belt running along the front of them for good measure. So they've not yet found anything that works better than tyres put together in a very particular way.
Which is just as well in a way. They're very easy to get, and they do the job efficiently. As you say, they've tried all sorts of things, including pneumatic walls. So the Ferrari is removed now from the helicopter. Watch the 2 red cars under the bridge down the hangar straight, with Michael Schumacher on the inside in the red car, Eddie Irvine a full car length ahead as he gives Michael Schumacher room to retain his 3rd position behind the McLarens, and zonk into that tyre wall. Tremendous impact.
One big puff of gravel off the rear tyres just as he hit the wall. Now I think they would have been throwing gravel out the back had it been a throttle, but he's trying to get out already. Look, he's obviously fully conscious and aware, but I think there could possibly tend to be a final rev of the engine as he went across there, but clearly it was still in gear, and there's no reason why it wouldn't be. But Michael didn't attempt to turn the steering wheel across the gravel, wanted to get out of the car straight away, which I can very much relate to, but then clearly had some pain or something, could even have been trapped in his overalls if parts of the car have encroached into the cockpit.
Martin, we've seen a lot of Michael Schumacher. Very, very worrying time for Eddie Irvine. They don't know what happened to, at least I presume they don't know what happened to Michael Schumacher's car. I remember when in Imola, San Marino, when Gerhard Berger went into the wall in the Ferrari and it caught fire, a very agitated James Hunt shot out of the box, and he grabbed hold of Nigel Mansell and he said, "You must not go out in this race, Nigel." Nigel did, of course, but
well, they're now getting the car back, look, so they'll be able to download immediately the data on that car, and they should be able to just bring up on screen the few hundred meters, almost within a minute, the few hundred meters of the entire accident procedure at the end of Hangar Straight. So the Ferrari team will know pretty quickly, I believe, providing there hasn't been some damage to the electronics on the car, what actually happened.
Now, there's somebody who's just come back to the Ferrari motorhome from the medical centre. You may have wondered why they're covering the car with sheets as they are now. It's standard procedure, every team does it, and they don't want to publicise the fact that the car is very badly damaged. There would be a swarm of photographers all around the place, so just cover it up and get it out of the way into the garage.
Yes, that was Tim, who works with Luca Di Montezemolo when he's moving around the world, and he was running back into the Ferrari area, probably to fill Luca in on the latest state of play.
Luca Di Montezemolo being the head man of Ferrari, who with Niki Lauda in 1975 brought Ferrari back to the front again. Niki Lauda, the world champion in 1975, and then 1977 and Montezemolo went on to mastermind the World Cup in Italy and to do various other jobs in the Fiat empire before he was put in charge of Ferrari again, this time as head man as opposed to team director, and what a fabulous job he has done. Very sad sight this is, to see a great motor car of a great driver being so undignifiedly taken off the truck and put into the garage. The shutters will come down to keep prying eyes away, and that sadly is going to be the last that we see of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari at the 1999 British Grand Prix.
The door will
Let's
come
hope
down
that
like
we'll be seeing it again as soon as we possibly can.
The door will come down like a guillotine now. They do not want that car photographed, and they'll have to look at it straight away in case it does have ramifications for Irvine's Ferrari, as you rightly say, Murray.
Well, there's about 8 minutes now, according to my watch, before the new formation lap at 20 minutes to 2, as Eddie Irvine impassively sits in the Ferrari. Real pressure on him, not only wondering whether his car might have a problem, but knowing that he is going to be literally carrying the Ferrari banner from 4th position on the grid, with not one but 2 McLarens in front of him. Some people may be wondering whether they will withdraw Eddie Irvine. Well, frankly, I see no reason why they should withdraw Eddie Irvine at the moment, because...
Well, they will have spoken to Michael Schumacher, because we know he's fully conscious, so Michael will have filled them in on what happened, whether it was a blocking of a brake, as I suspected, or possibly the throttle, possibly a steering problem, and we're surmising on a lot of this anyway. And now they'll have the...
Eddie doesn't look too worried,
no, he doesn't look too upset about it, does he, in a way, but he's got his race to run this afternoon. And now they'll have the telemetry, download that, so they have a lot of information before they... why are they starting
the only good thing
Why are they working on the T car?
The only good thing I can tell you about the Michael Schumacher situation is that there is no fitter man in the pit lane, and very few anything like as fit.
Yeah, well, they're not expecting Michael Schumacher to come waltzing in there, of course. They're set, because Schumacher always has the T car set up for him. Let's say there's another first lap incident and another restart, and it won't be the first time that's happened.
There's plenty of precedence for that.
Plenty, and so now they're getting the T car ready in case Irvine needs it this afternoon.
So what sort of things will they be doing? You're asking yourselves. Well, actually, the way Schumacher and Irvine want their cars set up is virtually identical, so there won't be very much to do. They would have to change the seat. There's the new tyre wall. A fine job has been done, as ever, by the British Marshals, which is no less than you would expect. They are the best in the world. So we're going to leave Silverstone again for a little while, but we'll be back. Damon Hill, sitting in the Jordan, is now effectively in 5th position on the grid, with just Michael Schumacher ahead of, with just Eddie Irvine ahead of him, and a clear track, because the gap that Michael Schumacher occupied is now empty. Jackie Stewart watches over Rubens Barrichello there in the grid 7 position. Well, I was talking about the gap, you can see it, there it is. The two McLarens on the left. To the top of your screen, Mika Häkkinen pole position, behind him David Coulthard 3rd on the grid. Martin, if you were in Coulthard's car with a gap on the right, might it affect your starting procedure second time round?
Well, it gives him a bit of freedom if Häkkinen's slow away to get in there and take the lead, but of course it's Eddie Irvine that's got a nice straight run, but still got to get the car up and away. Ralph has returned to his car. We saw him scampering out the back of the pits. I think he probably went over to the medical centre to have a quick look at his brother and a quick chat with his brother. Now back in the car. Difficult, he's only 23 years old, difficult for him to keep his head right at this moment, but he seems a mature lad, so he should be okay.
He's got his feet on the ground, and of course the moment those 5 red lights go out, all your concentration is on improving your position and controlling the motor car. You haven't got time to think of anything else. Jacques Villeneuve there, not too badly down the grid, 9th position in the BAR. That's one of their better grid positions this year. Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 world champion for Williams, has yet to finish a race in the BAR. There's Georgie Hill, who I had the very great pleasure of interviewing, as you saw, wondering, I suppose, whether this is not only her husband's last British Grand Prix, but her husband's last Grand Prix before he retires, and we still don't know what the situation is. My guess, and it is a guess for what it's worth, is that if Damon does well in this race, he will obviously be encouraged to go on, but on the other hand, he might well say, I've done well, I want to go out on the top, and that's it, goodbye folks. And if he did, nobody would think anything other than well of him after a magnificent World Championship winning career. And we look now at Jean Alesi. Look at those eyes, absolutely focused. This is the most experienced Grand Prix driver of modern times, because he's driven in over 150 Grand Prix. No one else on the grid has driven in as many. The 2 red lights up there, will it go out and then come on one at a time for the start of the race? More news from James Allen.
Yeah, standing outside the medical centre, still waiting for something official on Michael Schumacher, but Bernie Ecclestone has just arrived, and rather drawn-faced, of course, but he's gone straight to the medical centre. Ralph Schumacher sent along a Williams representative. He went away without too much information, but certainly enough to reassure his brother. And hopefully in the next minute or two we'll have some sort of official word for you.
Thank you, James. We were with Johnny Herbert looking forward at Villeneuve's car. Now we're looking, there is Johnny Herbert, and ahead is Jacques Villeneuve's car, and to his right is Jean Alesi. So a BAR immediately in front of him, and a Sauber to the right.
Yes, if Alesi starts the race today, he'll be 159, so he moves 1 ahead of me, and that makes him, I think, something around 12th highest number of Grand Prix starts of all time.
Incredible. So, formation lap again, second time around, as the British Grand Prix is about to restart, with Mika Häkkinen leading away, followed by David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, the 2 Jordans, the yellow Jordans of Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Damon Hill. Behind them, the white Stewart of Rubens Barrichello.
Well, Irvine carries the weight of the Ferrari team on his shoulders now, which he did admirably when he won in Melbourne, of course, and in Canada when Michael crashed out, so it doesn't seem to upset his rhythm too much when he's the sole Ferrari runner. But he's got 2 McLarens to have a good old dice with, and those 2 Jordans just behind him, I think, will be quite a menace as well.
Well, we're coming up to the 8th race. This is the 8th race of the season, and so far Eddie Irvine has had a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th and a 6th position to give him 26 World Championship points, and that makes him 3rd behind Michael Schumacher, 6 points behind Michael Schumacher, and Mika Häkkinen, the World Championship leader. As they come up to bridge, you can see that's bridge corner, the right-hander behind them. Then the left-hander at Priory, which leads into the other left-hander that you see at the top of your picture of Brooklands. The double right, it's a sort of continuous right at Luffield 1 and 2. Then into the kink it is now at Woodcote. There was a time when Woodcote was one of the most demanding corners in Formula One. It was emasculated completely for a time with a chicane, but has now been returned to a lot of its former glory, albeit with a much slower approach as the result of the advent of the long horseshoe-shaped Luffield 1 and 2 bends. So now the track temperature here is some 38 degrees. Now that's pretty hot. It's not as hot as it has been this year, but it's still pretty hot, demanding for the tyres, demanding for the drivers. A lot of stress on the drivers, knowing that the race was stopped for the reason it was stopped, as we sit with Damon Hill looking ahead at Irvine. To the left, the yellow Jordan of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Further up the grid as the tail enders, Luca Badoa and Marc Genet in their Minardis. There they are, come into line. And there are 21 starters for the restart of the British Grand Prix.
Lucky for those two cars that stalled on the line. We never quite saw who they were, but here's the lights, Murray.
That's it. Explosive start from Häkkinen, and Frentzen attacking, trying to get between. Eddie Irvine has got ahead of Coulthard. Irvine in the Ferrari ahead of Coulthard, and Frentzen has made an excellent start. So has Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, but that was a magnificent start for Eddie Irvine. And that's Pedro de la Rosa who is on the line. Let's hope they can get him out of the way. We don't want another restart. But now it is Häkkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen. Damon Hill has been passed by Ralf Schumacher, but he's fighting back. There's Schumacher, there is Hill, Rubens Barrichello, Alesi and Deniz. And Mika Häkkinen has got the lead and has already got clear air between himself and Eddie Irvine, who is already rising to the challenge magnificently. He's done it by passing David Coulthard. He's second in the race, and he started in 4th position.
We just heard Michael Schumacher has a broken right leg and is conscious and is on his way by helicopter to hospital. So relatively good news, I guess, about Michael Schumacher.
Well, it's great news in the light of what might have happened. Bad news in the light of him, ideally, obviously, having a clear race.
Is that a safety car? I think I can see the safety car as on the pit straight, Murray. So
no indication. Yes, yeah. You're absolutely right. Is that for Takagi? Whatever, yeah. Here they come.
Yeah, they had to commit to that. Although they've got Takagi's car out of the way, by the time they all got round, they had to commit. So De La Rosa, apparently, they had to admit, commit to the safety car. So they all close up. Well, we're having a job to get this one up and running, aren't we?
Yeah, the arrows, incidentally, just a soupçon of information for you, are going to be using Supertech engines next year. There is Pedro de la Rosa, the Spanish driver, in his first season of Formula One, pushed in the arrows, so the safety car will be back in again very quickly indeed, now that the problem has been removed from the track. And the two men so far, in just that short distance we've had, are Eddie Irvine and Ralf Schumacher. Irvine for getting ahead of Coulthard, Schumacher for getting ahead of Damon Hill. And it's the old story now. The safety car will come in, and remember, no one is allowed to pass until they have crossed the official start line.
Yes, and that's a shot of Schumi being taken to the helicopter. I think you'll find coming into the right-hand corner of your picture now. So Michael Schumacher on the way to, I think it'll be Northampton General Hospital, I assume. But so up behind the safety car. Now remember, you've got Coulthard behind Irvine. Remember what happened in Canada, Murray, when Coulthard tried to move on Irvine and they clashed, and David will be wanting to get past Irvine very, very quickly to make sure he stays in touch with Hakkinen, who's blistering around here.
Yeah, Hakkinen racing away. He's got to... Well, he's keeping up with the safety car, of course, driven by Alex Ribeiro. Oliver Gavin, who normally drives the safety car, drove in the Formula 3000 race yesterday. And I see safety car, Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralph Schumacher. Yellow car is Damon Hill. White car is Rubens Barrichello. Behind Rubens Barrichello's white steward is Jean Lacey. Then it's Pedro Diniz and Johnny Herbert.
Lights are out, he's coming in, Murray, so this is the restart. It's going to be a good scramble down to the first corner. Who can try and make anything of it? Irvine's the one closest to Hakkinen. Has he got enough straight line speed? Irvine had to get out of it coming out of Lutfield. That gives Coulthard a run at him, beautifully in the slipstream. Can Coulthard do anything down the outside? It's going to be tough from there, very tough from there. Try and take him on the inside on the way out, but Eddie defended his line well.
And Heinz-Harald Frentzen still there ahead of Ralph Schumacher and Damon Hill, but it's giving Mika Hakkinen the chance he wanted to break away. But Eddie Irvine is the most improved driver of 1999 from a very, very high level. It's not as though Eddie Irvine was not good before. He was, but he's had an absolutely magnificent season. And the rumours are that he has already signed for Stewart in 1999. I emphasise it's very much a rumour. And he's been getting more and more fractious about having to play number 2 to Michael Schumacher. Well, he's not having to play number 2 for him now. He is number 1 in the Ferrari team at Silverstone. And already he's ahead of Coulthard. And it's Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Ralph Schumacher coming through to complete the first lap. And of course it's still a full 60-lap race. The British Grand Prix at Silverstone, they're coming out of the two left-handers now into Lutfield. And Lacey is tucked up well behind Rubens Barrichello, and Johnny Herbert has made good progress too. So across the line they go. That's the lap completed. Hakkinen, Irvine, Coulthard, Frentzen, Schumacher, Damon Hill, Barrichello, Lacey, Johnny Herbert. And Herbert is in the top 10. Both the stewards are in the top 10.
There's no Coulthard on the computer. Whether Coulthard didn't trigger it, I haven't seen him on the racetrack. At the moment,
yes, he's fifth.
No, but he's slipping back down. I think the computer's had a bit of a wobbly. Let's have a look on the racetrack.
Well, let's have a look at the track and see, because now we're looking at the steward. There is Frentzen. And
yeah, Coulthard's on track. Coulthard. He's not showing up on the computer as having passed the start-finish line. A little glitch there, but Coulthard's still third in this race.
Well and truly there. The McLarens are first and third. The sole Ferrari is sandwiched between them. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the winner of the French Grand Prix, and the man who has adapted so magnificently to the Jordan team, is still there in fourth position as Ron Dennis watches the race. Now, you have to say that Hakkinen is in a very commanding position. I remind you that he was fastest in all the sessions before the race began. He was fastest this morning in the warm-up. He has already won in Brazil and Spain and Canada this year, leads the World Championship as the reigning world champion. So he's very, very well settled down.
Yes, he's been a McLaren driver since 1993. I can't imagine how many thousands of laps he's done around this circuit as Mika Hakkinen. Could easily drive it blindfolded, and he is blisteringly fast, never more so than this weekend. De La Rosa already out of the race. The computers have gone down completely now, so no technical information to us.
First, we will have to adopt the old-fashioned principle of looking out of the window and seeing what is happening. What is happening? And what is happening as we get a replay of the restart.
Look, Murray.
Now let's have a look at it.
Coulthard gets away well and then seems to bog down. Frentzen nearly went between the pair of them, had to get out of it. Irvine scampering off into second place, trying to have a bit of a go around the outside of Hakkinen. So Coulthard not getting a good run through, and somebody getting squeezed out there. I think it must have been a Lacey by Hill.
Lacey and Hill. Here it is again. Now let's have a look. Look back at Damon Hill and let's see what happens. There is the yellow car. Ralph Schumacher goes past him as they go up to Copse the first time. There's Barrichello challenging, and Lacey trying to go round the outside. And Damon Hill drifts sideways. Lacey almost goes under the gravel trap. Damon Hill gets back in front of Rubens Barrichello. And Takagi brings up the rear. And here is the safety
Now this is
car.
Coulthard slipstreaming. This is on the restart after the safety car. You saw a replay. Coulthard slipstreaming well, goes down the outside. Irvine doing the one and only thing he should be doing, and that's keeping the inside line. You'll never get around the outside. It's a 160-mile-an-hour corner. So Coulthard nailed in third, Irvine up to second.
David Coulthard has clearly not been at all completely happy with the McLaren all weekend. He was complaining about not being able to get the rear end of the car handling the way he wanted it to. Mika Häkkinen, on the other hand, was completely happy. We're riding now with Damon Hill
into Beckett,
chasing Ralf Schumacher ahead of him in the Williams. Now, the Williams is a very much modified motor car for this race. They have a new floor, they have new side pods, they have a new exhaust system, and the results have been absolutely superb. Because Schumacher, Ralf, was well up. He started 8th on the grid, but he was higher than that in some of the sessions. And at last, the Williams seems to be making progress in terms of on-track performance. Because look, we are riding with world champion Damon Hill in the Jordan Honda with the new engine, and that's developing a lot more power. And yet, Ralf Schumacher magnificently is staying ahead. Obviously, any thoughts of his brother, as I said, have been put out of his mind by the on-track action.
And we also have to assume that Ferrari haven't yet found out anything specific about Michael Schumacher's car, because Irvine very much still on the racetrack.
So, wonderful shot this. We haven't had as much on-car action as we might have liked this year, but we couldn't have a better car to have a camera on than Damon Hill's Jordan here at Silverstone as Mika Häkkinen leads. Eddie Irvine, now let's see how close David Coulthard is. There's the answer. That's the gap to Frentzen. That's the gap to Schumacher. That's the gap to Hill. That's the gap to Barrichello, followed by Alesi. Here comes Johnny Herbert. That is Pedro Diniz. There is Villeneuve, followed by Zanardi and Trulli, and the rest of them pouring through. The green-topped helmet is Tora Takagi, and now the gap between Mika Häkkinen and Eddie Irvine is definitely increasing. The gap between Coulthard and Frentzen is increasing. The competitors are getting spread out. There are still 21, but into the pits comes one of the Minardis. It's Luca Badoer. This is the first pit stop we've had during the race. It's obviously not a routine one. The earliest we would have expected for a two-stop strategy is on lap 20.
Yes, Badoer's obviously had a trip across the gravel or a curve or something. They're changing the nose, or maybe tripped over another player. So back now with the leaders, where the computers are completely down. There's no sign whatsoever of gaps between drivers or laps complete. There's the helicopter taking Michael Schumacher off to hospital. So helicopter up and away. And remember, the teams on the pit wall have no information either, because we share the same information system. So at the moment, everybody's working by very much getting their stopwatches out and having a look at the track as in the good old days.
Yeah, a word about that as you watch Irvine and Coulthard. In the old days, there used to be mechanical lap charts, people writing numbers down on pieces of paper as the cars went past, and we had the old turnip stopwatches, clockwork stopwatches. Now all these cars carry electronic equipment, and when they cross the line, they send a message to the computer, I have crossed the line, and that message goes to hundreds of monitors all around the circuit, the commentary boxes and the pit positions on the grid. You see Eddie Irvine looking at his, absolutely blank. There is no information except the Union Jack, and I've got that, so they're no better off than we are, and I'm no better off than they are. And this is transforming the situation, because all these teams work on the most sophisticated technology to decide on this. That's Luca Badoer out of the race, apparently. So he came into the pitch, you'll remember, a little while ago. Luca Badoer in the Minardi is the first retirement apart from Schumacher.
Double waved yellows. That's a very, very fast part of the racetrack to be parked on the outside, and they'll need to, I hope that thing's not stuck in gear. I hope his emergency clutch system works, because they need to pull that out of the way quickly. But for the moment, the cars are going to have to go into the first part of Beckett's under double waved yellows. It's 160 miles an hour as they enter that part of the racetrack. So I hope we're not in for another safety car situation. They should be able to recover it as long as it's not stuck in gear.
Mika Häkkinen looking calm and serene, as he always does. Now, this is a tremendously complicated motor car that he's driving, designed by Adrian Newey and his team at McLaren in Woking. And we don't know what is under that skin, because obviously the McLaren team is not going to be telling anybody what innovative things they have got. But we know that there is some enormously advanced Formula One technology, and Formula One technology is advanced any time. And it was believed to be because of that the cars were comparatively unreliable by their high standards. We're back again with Damon Hill. We're on lap 9, incidentally, in this 60-lap race, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. But as I was saying, the McLaren team seem to have beaten their reliability bogies, which have particularly affected the unfortunate David Coulthard, who has retired 4 times this year, in comparison with Mika Häkkinen, who has just stopped twice.
Let's watch Hill breaking down into Abbey chicane, 70 miles an hour, then accelerating hard straight up to 150 over the little crest into bridge. Oh, feathering the throttle quite a lot. It's quite warm on the track this afternoon. They're carrying something like 80 kilos of fuel. So car's a little bit fat and heavy compared to qualifying, and Hill's somewhat less committed through there because he has less grip.
Now, you can make your judgment when you see the on-car stuff from Damon Hill's car about how much closer, if at all, he is getting to Ralf Schumacher. We can't tell you in terms of time, for the reason that we haven't got the computer information that we normally rely on. But I can tell you for sure that there is Mika Häkkinen. Eddie Irvine is continuing to stave off David Coulthard. And yet again, Mika Häkkinen is showing that of the 2 McLaren drivers, he's the chap that's got the best handle on the car. After all, David Coulthard did start in 2nd position. He allowed Eddie Irvine to get ahead of him. He's not making any progress in terms of catching Eddie Irvine. There is the Ferrari, or there was the Ferrari, and you just failed to see David Coulthard behind him. There it is, there's the first 3. Häkkinen, Irvine, Coulthard. And that is John Alesi, who is chasing Rubens Barrichello. There he is in the Stewart. Now, the Stewart has got this new Ford V10 engine in it. The chassis has settled down extremely well. Alesi pushing hard. He wants to get past Barrichello, and I believe if he could pull away. Yeah, not a stellar weekend for the Stewart Ford team, but Alesi's doing a good job in this race. Had a little nibble up the inside there into the Abbey chicane. He'll have to be an awful lot closer than that, because the braking distance here is about 90 metres in that corner, and to make more than a car's length on somebody else is virtually impossible. But nonetheless, Alesi chasing like a little terrier dog in his 159th Grand Prix. Having scored just 1 World Championship point there. He's won 1 Grand Prix in his career, 1997 in Canada, earlier than that, when he was driving for Ferrari. So look at the way Rubens Barrichello, Rubens incidentally says you would expect me as a Brazilian to regard the Brazilian Grand Prix circuit as being my home one and to know it better than any other. Far from it. He says, I know Silverstone better than any other because I've done so many racing laps here. He's drove for 4 years for the Jordan team, which is based just across the road from the main entrance at Silverstone. Now he's with Stewart, who operate from Milton Keynes, just about 12 miles away. And like most of the drivers here, he knows Silverstone extremely well. So, Frentzen, Schumacher. Now, I do believe visually that Ralf Schumacher is a bit closer to Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He certainly seems to be further away from Damon Hill. Yeah, Damon Hill getting well out of shape there, trying very hard coming out of Abbey chicane, got on the throttle early and had to correct it. This is Frentzen, of course, who's leading that pack, and as ever, Ralf Schumacher, he has not got the fastest car on the racetrack. Even Frank Williams, Sir Frank would agree to that, but Ralf is always plugging away every race this season to put himself in points contention. Now, fortunately, unlike any other circuit in the world, I can talk to the man who is producing this program. We haven't got any computer information, but if we get a long shot somewhere where we can see all the cars coming towards us, we can tell you who they all are. Mika Häkkinen is first. Thank you, I've got it. Here is Eddie Irvine, who is second. There is David Coulthard, who is fourth. Just look at the gap before Heinz Frentzen comes through in fourth position. Fifth is Ralf Schumacher. Sixth is Damon Hill. He's still in the points. Seventh in the white Stewart is Rubens Barrichello, followed by Jean Alesi, eighth. Johnny Herbert is ninth, and Pedro Diniz is in 10th position. Jacques Villeneuve is 11th. Behind him, Zanardi is 12th. Trulli, 13th. Fisichella, Zonta, Wurz, and then Olivier Panis in the spare car, who managed to get out at the end of come out of the pit lane. So there we are. I hope you wrote them all down.
Well done, Murray. And I think Panis would have benefited, of course, from the red flag situation. He would have been able to take the fully restarted race.
Well, that's it. That's the reason that Panis is comparatively well up, and we'll pick out the tail enders for you later on during the race. They do not include Luca Badoer, of course, who has retired. As far as I know, there are just 2 retirements at the present moment. The unfortunate Michael Schumacher with that broken leg, which we hope is a simple break and won't take too long for him to get back into racing again. And Alesi is the man who is closest to the man in front of him at the present moment as we rejoin 6th position Damon Hill, the world champion of 1996, with a victory for Jordan and 21 victories for Williams behind him.
OK, on the edge of your seats, everybody. You're in this Formula 1 car heading down Hanger Straight. You're on the left-hand side, ready for the right-hander of Stowe. Don't turn in too early. Now apex late, 105 miles an hour. Take the curb on the left, down the hill, over the little blind crest of Vale. Brake desperately hard, 170 down to about 55. Lots of curb there from Damon. Sawtooth curb puts a tremendous vibration through the car, feeding the power and correcting the back end as he comes through Club, heading slightly uphill towards Abbey. Again, he wants to be on the right-hand side. It's a left-hander at the end. Brake now, he's picked his own braking point, loads the curve again. Can he, how hard? He short shifts, so trying to reduce the amount of power going to the rear wheels. Bridge, feathering again on the throttle, immediately over to the right. And now Luffield, sorry, not Luffield, Brooklands, slowest corner on the circuit. This is the one they're all missing yesterday. And now it's Luffield finally, a long, long right-hander, very difficult corner. You always want to go earlier than the car's ready. Into Woodcote one more time, past the main grandstands. Check your pit board on the right-hand side. Now try to get ready for the challenge of Copse Corner. Here it comes, 190, just feathered, 5th gear on the throttle already. And again, plenty of space there for Damon. He's driving within himself.
Yes, and this certainly indicates that the motivation which Damon Hill freely admitted that he had lost after the French Grand Prix is very much back here at Silverstone. He's still in the points, 6th position. 21 cars started this race, 18 are still left, with the retirements of Michael Schumacher, Luca Badoer and Pedro de la Rosa. So that is 1 Ferrari out, 1 Minardi out and 1 Arrows out as we look into the McLaren team garage. Now the Jordan team garage. There's our very own man in the background there.
Kevin Piper, I think, isn't it? But remember, Murray, that McLaren have not won this race for over 10 years.
You're right. You're right, and Mika Häkkinen has yet to win, therefore, a British Grand Prix. There have been some great McLaren winners of the British Grand Prix in the past, but not for a very long time. They're going to have a job not to win this one at the present moment. It would mean a mechanical gremlin, I think, for Mika Häkkinen. Out go the pit boards, and even more those pit boards are needed now, and the information that they contain is difficult to get.
Try reading that at 160 miles an hour. We've got the computer back, Murray.
There's good news. Now, let me bring you right up to date, everybody. We are now on lap 15 out of 14. I know, Louise, what is it? I can tell them this afterwards.
Yes, I was just going to tell you, Murray, that because we may have been missing our information on the timing since it's just come back, but the teams are covered in case that happens. Every time the car goes past the pit lane, there's a little blip of information comes back to the computers at the back of the garages. Included in that blip of information is, of course, the timings. I've been watching them very closely, the gap between Ralf Schumacher, Heinz Frentzen. It was down to 1 second, but it's just gone back up to 1.6. So I think Schumacher may have had a problem on that last lap.
I got it, Louise. Thank you very much. Lap 15 we are on now, out of 60. Mika Häkkinen is leading Eddie Irvine by 4.9 seconds and leading David Coulthard by 6.7 seconds. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 17 seconds behind the leader and 1.6 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is 1.3 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. You know that Rubens Barrichello is 7th with Alesi. There he is, right behind him. There is Barrichello 7th, Alesi 8th. Johnny Herbert in the background is 9th, with Pedro Diniz treading on his gearbox. Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR running well on lap 16 now, and he is in 11th position. 12th Zanardi, 13th Trulli, 14th Fisichella, 15th Ricardo Zonta in the second BAR, 16th is Alex Wurz, 17th is Panis, 18th is Takagi, 19th is Janae. That's the lot. Badar, De La Rosa and Schumacher out.
Yes, it's lap, they're on the 16th lap now, and Coulthard's got to get on with it. He's got to get right up behind Irvine, so that when they make their pit stops, I assume they're going to be lap 22, lap 23, something like that, he can try to overtake him during the first round of pit stops, assuming they're all on 2 stoppers, which I am at this time. So Coulthard and McLaren have got a job to do. At the moment, Häkkinen out front by 5.1 seconds, but he's not really scampering away at quite the pace I expected.
Now, I'll tell you what the retirement of Michael Schumacher is doing, quite apart from the obvious, and that's it, helping McLaren enormously in the Constructors' Championship. They are currently 6 points behind Ferrari. I'll bring you up to date with the rest of the information when we come back from this break. Well, what a British Grand Prix we are having. Lap 18 now out of 60, coming up towards the first round of fuel and tyre stops, which can change positions in this race. Michael Schumacher out with a broken leg, hopefully one that will take very comparatively little time to mend and get it back into the fray. The restart, Mika Häkkinen again led, but Eddie Irvine magnificently leapt past second starting David Coulthard, with Michael Schumacher out of the race, to take second position in the race, which he still holds. Both the Jordans are running well, 4th and 6th. Frentzen and Hill sandwiching Ralf Schumacher, who got ahead of Damon Hill at the start. Ralf Schumacher 8th on the grid, and he's now 5th in the race. And there is Mika Häkkinen leading the British Grand Prix. Here is the gap to Eddie Irvine, which is just under 6 seconds. There is David Coulthard in 3rd position as we round Copse Corner, head towards Maggots. Now look at this complex of bends at Beckett's.
Yes, turn in on the first part, 190, and then just scrub some speed off 125 through the middle for Coulthard. Then the second part, using a lot of curve there, David Coulthard, charging hard. There's a 1/10 of a second between the first 3 cars on the last lap. There really is nothing in it, but they're well over a second faster than the rest of the field, which is why that big gap's developing there that you can see.
14 seconds.
But the pace is very, very slow. We're going to wait on this just to show you how far away they are now, but the pace is very slow, Mary. The lap record here is 24.4, albeit in 97, because of course it was wet last year, and they're going around in 129s, a very slow, and considering that that's now nearly 5 seconds slower than qualifying.
Thank you, Martin. Michael Schumacher has a broken tibia. He is going to be out for at least 6 weeks, and I reckon therefore he's going to be lucky to be back at the Hungarian Grand Prix, which happens on August the 15th, maybe Belgium. And that certainly scuppers any chances he would have had of becoming world champion, and makes things that much easier for Mika Häkkinen, who's already leading the championship, to make it 2 in a row.
Yes, and you're looking at the leader now, Häkkinen, but with the driver movement in full flow at the moment, Murray, and lots of talk about Irvine maybe leaving Ferrari and etc., etc. That's going to put a big spotlight on that. I don't see them releasing him now.
No, nor do I. Not they're going to need Eddie. I felt they needed him before. Now we're getting ready for the first round of pit stops. That's the Sauber crew out. They may well have decided that since Jean Alesi has been trying manfully but unsuccessfully to get past Rubens Barrichello, who's in 7th position, for lap after lap, they might as well bring him in the hope that his pit stop will be faster than Barrichello's, which follows, and enable Alesi to rejoin the track ahead of Barrichello when the Brazilian comes out. We're on lap 20 now. We can start expecting 2-stop strategy pit stops any time now. There is Schumacher 5th, Damon Hill 6th, Barrichello coming towards us in 7th position, followed by the Sauber of Jean Alesi, who's dropping back. Johnny Herbert, I hardly dare say this because Johnny must have retired from more races than anybody else in Formula One. He's been in it for 10 years nearly now, and Johnny Herbert is going well. He's well in the top 10, and look at this battle now as they come down the Hangar Straight into Copse Corner. Denise, Villeneuve, Zanardi. Here into the pits comes Marc Genet for the first pit stop for the Minardi team, apart from Bernard, who came in and then retired. Genet is 19th and last.
Yes, they've gone through a straightforward split of 3 stints of 20 laps. They've cut the 60-lap race exactly into 3 segments. I think the main players will try to stretch it a little bit further.
Well, the British Grand Prix last year was won in most controversial circumstances, as we rejoin Damon Hill, by Michael Schumacher, who for the first time ever in Formula One history won the race stationary in the pit lane for all sorts of complicated reasons I haven't got time to tell you about now, with Mika Häkkinen in 2nd position and Eddie Irvine in 3rd place. That was last year when it was wet and horrible. In comes Giancarlo Fisichella from 15th in the race to take his first stop.
And that chicane coming into the pit lane is terrifying because they can take it at full speed. So the 120 km/h line is just after that, just before this the pit lane proper. So Benetton having an appalling weekend. Their cars really not anything like fast enough around there. I think they must be in quite a bit of shock at the moment. They're a long way off the pace. 17th and 18th on the grid they were.
Yes, and everything they tried, they practically rebuilt the car and changed all the settings last night, and it still made no difference for Fisichella, as in comes from Takagi in the arrows from 18th place. Tora Takagi, the Japanese driver, 18th when he came in. He'll be 19th now. Well, he may not be, because Genet, who was with him, is out on the track now, and Mika Häkkinen. Now, what we don't know is what sort of a strategy McLaren will have had. They may well have changed it with the advent, with the fact that Michael Schumacher is out of the race. I would very much doubt it. But Mika Häkkinen has got a commanding lead now of 6 seconds, as true enough, Alesi comes in. That's exactly what I thought would happen. They brought Alesi in the hope that he can get past Barrichello.
Fuel going in there at 8.8 kilos per second, and every 10 kilos of fuel costs you 0.38 of a second around here, so that's why they're two-stopping. They don't want to run too heavy on the fuel, but I think some of these cars might just have enough fuel in them if they want to. If there's any kind of safety car situation, they can one stop to go to the end of the race, but it all looks straight and clear and clean to me, and I'm expecting them all to two-stop. Certainly the Benetton team are. James, what's happening?
Yeah, Martin, I'm expecting them all to two-stop as well, and as I was saying to you before, the classic two-stopper would have started out with about 65 kilos of fuel and come in around about now. That's what Williams are doing. I can see they're ready, and obviously Benetton as well. But another way of looking at it, and you and I talked about this on the grid, was the changeover strategy, which is where you put a bit more fuel in the car, you give yourself the option of going 1 or 2, run about 25, 26 laps into the race. And I think that's what McLaren are doing. I think they kept their options open. Ferrari always keep their options open. So we could see them coming in around 24, 25. Watch how much fuel they put in, though. If he's stationary for around 7 seconds, it is a two-stopper. Anyone that's going to change their strategy will be stationary for at least 10.
Thank you, James. Well, you saw the top three together. You're watching Eddie Irvine now as round Chapel comes the silver McLaren of David Coulthard. And the gaps between the leaders, respectively, now are Irvine, that you're looking at, is 6.2 seconds behind Häkkinen, and he's 3 seconds ahead of David Coulthard.
Well, the driver of the race for me is this man here, Ralf Schumacher, so far. Everybody else is doing about what they should be doing. Coulthard's not having a sparkling one down there in 3rd place, but the first three are all on a good pace. But it's Ralf that's really got his car up into position that is ahead of where it possibly should be. But Zanardi in from 14th place. Well, poor old Alessandro is still not falling. It's halfway through his season, but it's not falling into place. It was a good stop.
Yeah, now, interesting, the stops we've had so far were 8.8 seconds for Fisichella, 8.3 for Alesi, 8.4 for Wurz, 7.2 for Zanardi. Very good pit stop work by the Williams team, which bodes well for Ralf Schumacher's chances. Look how close he is now to Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan. So if Schumacher can get a really slick stop and Frentzen takes a bit longer, Ralf can move up to 4th place.
Now, we think Ralf could be coming in anytime soon. Obviously not on this lap. He's missed the pit entry. Did I see Damon Hill ducking into the pit lane there? I think I did, just in the back of the picture. Damon Hill probably coming. He's really keeping up well with Frentzen. Frentzen, as we know, is driving brilliantly. If Damon Hill is... Louise is down there.
Damon's coming into the pit lane. He's just about to stop perfectly on his mark. As the tyres go on the car, you'll see some mechanics at the front of the car as well. They're making some adjustments to the stopping. They're taking a little bit of a off. Damon's been complaining of understeer. Same for Frentzen. That hasn't delayed them at all. He's back out again.
He didn't lose any time. He didn't gain any time. 8.5 seconds. Not as good as Zanardi, but just as good as the rest.
Brilliant getaway there from Damon. Now, he really had it up on the cam and ready to go. But, you know, if Damon is making his mind up after his performance today, so far, Murray, I think he'd be pretty pleased with himself.
I should think he'd be absolutely delighted with himself. He started 6th. He was in the hunt all the time through the practice and qualifying sessions. And what's far more important, it's a different Damon altogether here at Silverstone than it was at Magny-Cours. There he was downcast and miserable and depressed. Here he's been up all the time. Cheerful, chipper, the old Damon Hill, and fighting hard.
Yeah, crucial laps here. He was only 2.6 seconds behind Frentzen when he went in, and that's Coulthard in the pit lane. So unusual. Normally they bring in Häkkinen first normally they bring in whichever McLaren is in the lead first, but Coulthard coming in. So and getting away 7.6. That's a good stop, Murray. 7.6. He's got to do something about Eddie Irvine.
And here comes Frentzen into the pits as well. It's all happening. Frentzen followed by Schumacher.
Straightforward team race here. Schumi locking up his right front wheel. No harm done there. Would have scared his mechanics a little bit. It's a pure team race. Who can get their car away first? And yes, it's
done it. Frentzen.
No, that's Ralf.
Sorry, Ralf. Yes, there's Ralf getting away. There is Frentzen. So Ralf Schumacher is there out on the track ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yeah, good stop there from the Williams boys, and I don't know whether there was a fumble on the back of the Jordan or whatever happened, but Frentzen, the end of the pit stop, seemed to take way too long.
In they come now. In comes Jarno Trulli in the first Prost. He's in 12th position. Just watch it carefully. That's a good stop too. That's the best one we've had so far.
Now, which of those Jordans is in front? Is that Hill in front of Frentzen? I can't see from this distance.
It's difficult to tell, but meantime, here's Mika Häkkinen.
Leader.
Here is race leader, and he comes in now. Eddie Irvine is leading the British Grand Prix. And then Folio, because they've got a problem on the right front. Left rear, sorry, 9.2 seconds. Well, he's got plenty of time in hand. But nevertheless, he's lost us. Let's hope they've got that nut on strongly.
No, he's wiggling the car around, just feeling. Somebody's told him, just feel. Is that okay? Just feeling the car as he went down there, putting it side to side, see if he could feel any movement. Poor stop there for Häkkinen.
It wouldn't be the first time that a lost wheel nut has cost somebody the race. It cost Nigel Mansell the Hungarian Grand Prix one year when we had a dramatic shot of the nut flying off the wheel and in the wheel itself.
Enjoy this lap, Eddie. Eddie Irvine leading the British Grand Prix. Nice to see.
And the order now, at the moment, with Häkkinen having made his stop, is that Eddie Irvine is the race leader. And here he is, the man who won the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. And Häkkinen is coming in again. We believe that Häkkinen is coming in again.
Yes, he's not going very fast.
And
he's not at full speed.
Irvine holds this lead.
And Coulthard is now in front of Häkkinen, look, but Coulthard tucked up behind two back markers at a crucial time when he really needs a clear track to be able to get ahead of Eddie Irvine. Crucial lap this for how this race is going to pan out.
So we're on lap 26 now, and we wait for them to come past as David Coulthard tries to thread his way through the field. Well, he was held up there, and here is Irvine into the pit lane. James Allen.
Yes, Eddie Irvine, another chance to win yet another Grand Prix because Mika Häkkinen is definitely in trouble. They've got another set of tyres behind me ready for his car, and Eddie Irvine won't have a better chance than this. 7.6. I think this might be a change of strategy for Ross Brawn. Yes, they've changed the strategy. He's on a one-stopper. Watch this.
Yes,
but hang on.
Thank you, James. That took 12 full seconds, so a lot of extra fuel went in there.
It may be, but here's Häkkinen coming slowly into the pit line. Be careful, because Irvine made a pig's ear coming into the pit garage, skidded past, and I think everybody had to shuffle along a little bit. Don't be too sure of that. But meanwhile, previous race leader Häkkinen back into the pit line. James, what's happening?
Yes, the tyres go back on the Häkkinen. Changing what I was just saying. Nigel Stepney, chief mechanic at Ferrari, is shaking his head. That was a mistake, as you said. It wasn't an extra fuel load. It was a problem with the fuel meter. Still problems at the back for Häkkinen. You can see them better than I can.
It's dropped the car.
It's costing him. They've taken the wheel off. The seconds are ticking away. Does this mean to say that McLaren are still not going to win a British Grand Prix? They're in real trouble with this hub here. Well, they've got him away now. That's 27.6 seconds added to 9.2. So, and he wiggles the car there again.
They're still not sure, are they?
As well.
And it costs 25 seconds to call into the pits, plus any work done. And Coulthard is in front of Irvine. So Coulthard now leads the race.
Well, David Coulthard in the McLaren. And he has made his pit stop. Eddie Irvine has made his pit stop. What a fantastic development. Mika Häkkinen in trouble. Ralf Schumacher is now in fourth position, but may well be moving up. We've got to wait for the confirmation of this. As David Coulthard crosses the line as race leader, followed by Eddie Irvine. You can see the gap between for yourselves. This is lap 28 out of 60.
This is where Coulthard is at his best. He always says, I love leading a race. I feel in control. He prefers to lead than chase. So now Coulthard's got his chance to win the British Grand Prix and try to haul some points back into this championship. But we're not even at half distance yet.
Richly deserves a victory, heaven knows, as the car mechanics look at the wheel and the hub which caused the problem. But anyway, you can see now the developing battle, and what a battle it's going to be, because Eddie Irvine knows he can win this race if he hangs in there. He won in Australia, he knows he can win, maybe he's in the closing races of his career, his superb career with Ferrari, and how fabulous it would be if he went out with a win. But the same thing applies to David Coulthard. 4 victories behind him for Williams and McLaren, and this is the thing that he desperately needs to restore his self-confidence to the full. He's had problem after problem this year, mainly with unreliable McLarens, but it hasn't put him down. He's just hung on there, and it looks as though he may be getting his reward, but we still have a long way to go.
The nip and tuck, he's not pulling away from Irvine, but no excuses for waving the Union Jack, and the crowd out here are certainly waving the Union Jacks, because we have 2 British drivers at the front of this Grand Prix. 3 British drivers in the top 5, and
here's Irvine out of the pits. Now let's see how Coulthard took the lead. Eddie Irvine coming out of his pit stop. He's got to stay to the left of the yellow line, and there goes Coulthard. And Coulthard chopped across the front of him on the racing line and took the lead in the British Grand Prix. And yes, the Union Jacks are waving, but if there's any Saltires here, they'll be waving, because it's the Saltire that David Coulthard proudly carries on his helmet.
And something else that makes me think Irvine's car is not full of fuel, ready to go completely to the end of the race, is that Coulthard is not getting away at this time. So I still, if you look back on the, maybe we'll get a replay of the Eddie Irvine pit stop. You'll see as he comes in, he locks his wheels and skids to the right corner of his box, and everybody had to shuffle along.
Well, now here is another piece of sensational information for you. Third in the British Grand Prix is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. We saw him get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and he is now in 4th position. Beeman Hill is in 5th position with Barrichello 6th, Villeneuve 7th, Alesi 8th, Johnny Herbert still in that 9th position. 10th place is Pedro Diniz, and Mika Hakkinen is still in the race, of course. He's in 11th position. We're looking at him now. He's not only still in the race, but he's the fastest man on the track. 1 minute 28.3, and that compares with last year's fastest lap of Michael Schumacher, in the wet of course, 1:35, and the lap record, Michael Schumacher in 1997, 1 minute 24.4. Mika Hakkinen is on his way. He's 12 seconds behind Pedro Diniz, but his minimum target will be to get into the top 6 and score at least 1 World Championship point. Coulthard leads, Irvine is second. Look at the blank track behind them. The gap is 21 seconds behind Eddie Irvine to the 3rd place man, Ralf Schumacher. And the horn, now there are the 2 Jordans together. The front one is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. There he is, the winner in France.
Oh, Damon Hill well out of shape. Sorry, Murray, to cut across you. Damon Hill, oh, there's a wheel off. Is that a McLaren? That's Hakkinen, lost his left rear. Car's going round it. Hakkinen's left rear off.
Safety car.
I wonder if that'll be safety car.
Safety car will have to come out to allow them to retrieve that wheel.
They won't get that car running again, I don't think, not safely, but...
Looks they have.
Brave man.
Wow. There's going to be a post-mortem over this with the suppliers and at McLaren, as Mika Hakkinen comes in to finish his British Grand Prix, surely. Are they going to put a wheel on and give him another go?
They'll have to look at the floor. If the floor's okay, then they will be able to carry on.
But we didn't see any sparks come up, as we have so very often in the past. But this is doing no good for Mika Hakkinen at all. But at the present moment, the McLaren failure to win a British Grand Prix may, for 10 years, maybe put... Well, they seem to be happy with it this time. That's another 24 seconds down the line, though. We're going to have a... Let's see if we can see, as Mika Hakkinen goes out, what happens. He turns into the corner. You can see the car jink. He's obviously feeling it loose at the back, and hardly surprising, because off rolls the left rear wheel over the gravel track.
Yes, the wheel makes it back onto the racetrack eventually, as we all know. So it's amazing the amount of energy, isn't it?
Just shows how much energy they contain.
It couldn't have happened at a better time, just as the pit lane entry's coming up. So Hakkinen skidding down. Now that's Hakkinen back on track again, isn't it? But he must now be a lap down on that on the Jordan that he's following.
He's now a lap behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is in 4th position. and has got ahead of Damon Hill. So
Villeneuve, sorry to interrupt, Murray. Villeneuve in front of us, having stopped. Safety car is out. The safety car is out.
And that's the reason. Jacques Villeneuve is not going to finish a Grand Prix again for the BAR team, which won't improve his humour. He's a shareholder. This is the 8th race he started for BAR, and the 8th race he has failed to finish. Now, no one should underestimate how difficult it is to get going with a new team in Formula One.
Murray, now will they bring the cars in? If this was Indy style racing, they for sure they'd treat this as a yellow, bring the cars in for a pit stop. So I wonder, we can see the Ferrari team getting ready. This might be a chance to bring the cars in, fuel them up to the end of the race. Will McLaren react in the same way as Ferrari?
Well, they are no less experienced. There's Ferrari obviously expecting Eddie Irvine in.
The problem is that runs in on there trying to make a decision. Problem is you'll lose track position. If not enough cars come in, you end up at the back of the snake, and although you can run to the end, you find yourself losing too much time coming through the back markers.
Jack, that's Norbert Haug, the boss of Mercedes-Benz competition department. You saw Jacques Villeneuve not looking exactly overjoyed with the fact that for the 8th time in 8 races he has retired. And here is Villeneuve. It looks like the Supertech engine has said it's had enough for the day. But 30 laps of Silverstone is as much as it's prepared to accommodate on July the 11th, 1999. There's his car being pushed out of the way. Lap 32 we are on now, therefore there's 28 to go. David Coulthard is leading Irvine. There's the safety car. Now let's read down. There, the silver car ahead of the red one is Coulthard ahead of Irvine. Then is Ralf Schumacher. Behind him is going to be Heinz Harald Frentzen.
McLaren mechanics in the pit lane, as are Ferrari. Ferrari moving out of the pit lane now. There's some kind of mind games. There's some kind of mind games going on. Look, that's the Ferrari team. They've suddenly. James, what's happening down there?
Well, Ross Brawn got the Ferrari mechanics out ready, and obviously we were talking about changing to a one-stop strategy. They had the problem I mentioned to you before with the fuel hose on Irvine's first stop. Made me think he changed the strategy to a one-stopper because he was so long there. Go back to you, Martin.
James, sorry the lights are out, so they're going to restart straight away. That's why they've changed that plan. So that saves anybody making a bad decision there, because the lights are out on the safety car. This is a restart. Look at Irvine creeping around the outside of Coulthard. Coulthard's got to back him up and then floor it and make sure he gets the run into the first corner. Exactly what he's done. Irvine won't get at him from there.
So Coulthard leads, Irvine second. That's Takagi, but he is down now. Let's look for the yellow. It's bad for Ralf Schumacher because he's in amongst tail-enders traffic, and it's bad also for Frentzen for the same reason. Now there is Frentzen, and behind him is Damon Hill. Damon Hill still in that 5th position, but this is giving Coulthard there and Irvine the opportunity to break away with a clear track in front of them.
Yes, Irvine a bit less cautious into Beckett, and that's put him up behind Coulthard.
Look at Hakkinen on the right.
Yes.
Hakkinen trying to get past the yellow Jordan as they go into, but Coulthard is Hakkinen gives a wave of the hand as Frentzen lets him by to say thank you.
And Barrichello coming up the inside of Hill. Barrichello for position. Damon Hill slipping back. That's yes, Barrichello taking 5th, Hill 6th. And Hakkinen passing Frentzen, but not for position, of course. He's 1 lap behind, having had those problems with the loose wheel. So again, Irvine appears to have a little bit more grip on this first lap, but nowhere near close enough to have a stab at Coulthard.
Fantastic scrap at the front. What people are now regarding as the number 2 drivers of both teams, although they are no doubt about David Coulthard. He's supposed to be on the same level as Hakkinen, but nevertheless, it's Coulthard leading, Irvine right behind him.
Yeah, Irvine making a mistake at Priory there and losing out quite badly. So went in a little bit deep, a little bit heavy. Coulthard choosing to build his speed up. Irvine trying to worry him into a mistake. Good driving from the pair of them. And Ralph, as we said through the programme, doing a sterling job there in 3rd place.
Look at the way Hakkinen is scything through the field now, but he's still a full lap behind.
problem. I wonder if they'll park Hakkinen in front of Irvine and bother Irvine if they get half a chance to make sure Coulthard can stay out front.
First he's got to catch him, then he's got to get past him. There's just one car now between Eddie Irvine and Mika Hakkinen, as in comes Jean Alesi for another pit stop. We're on lap 34. There are the race leaders. I would be hard put to decide who I was going to put my money on as we rejoin Damon Hill scything through on the inside in the Jordan. That's Heinz Harold Frentzen ahead of him. So now Rubens Barrichello is fifth, and the race order is Coulthard, Irvine, Ralf Schumacher, Heinz Harold Frentzen, Barrichello is fifth, Hill is sixth. Johnny Herbert has taken advantage of things and is in seventh position ahead of Deniz, Fisichella and Zanardi. And we still have 18 out of the 21 starters left.
Yes, this traffic's working badly for Damon Hill. He's lost that place to Barrichello, and now he's got Johnny Herbert climbing all over the back of him too. So Herbert coming on strong in the second half of this Grand Prix. Back on board again with Damon Hill in Brooklands corner, short squirt of the throttle into left field. And look, the two leaders are coming past us now, Murray. The grandstands are cheering and waving. You're on board with Damon. He's now coming past those same grandstands, currently in sixth position for 1 point.
Yeah, but interestingly, Mika Hakkinen, who is behind Ralf Schumacher, has not been able to get past him. There they are in the background as we watch the race leaders, Coulthard, Irvine. The next two up you see in the background, there they are Schumacher and Hakkinen. Schumacher, Ralf, who is in third position. Now let's look at this. There go the leaders now. There is Ralf Schumacher third, Mika Hakkinen in 16th, but a lap down. He's trying to get on the same lap as the leaders. There is Frentzen fourth, Barrichello fifth, Damon Hill is in sixth position, Johnny Herbert is seventh. Behind Johnny Herbert is Deniz, and then there's a whole pack of cars. Remember, they were all together when the safety car came in, and they have still not spread out. Hakkinen, Irvine.
Now, Coulthard leading. It's Coulthard in front of Irvine, and there's really nothing between them. Both 1 minute 29.2 on that last lap. So, and there's Alesi. We saw him. I know you were looking for him when you were doing the countdown, Murray, count through there, but he's obviously had a technical problem somewhere along the line.
Yeah, Alesi in trouble again. He's down in 15th position. Well, David Coulthard, as Martin says, is where he wants to be, leading a race again, extremely determined. And Louise has got Jacques Villeneuve with her. What's the news, Louise?
I have indeed, Murray. Well, let's ask the man himself. Jacques, a bit of a dodgy place to stop. Any idea what the problem was?
Something broke on the car, drive shaft, the transmission, I'm not sure.
Are you getting a bit frustrated with all these retirements?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And when the car seemed like it was going to finish the race, then I went off. So it's not been a very good first half of the season. Somehow the car was very difficult to drive now. There was a lot of oversteering, but our strategy was looking to be good because we were only on one stop and the safety car came out just after our pit stop. So we were looking very good for the end of the race.
Bad luck, Jack.
What happened to you, Martin?
Well, Ralf Schumacher is determined not to let Mika Hakkinen past. He may not even realise, of course, that the Finn is not yet on the same lap as he is.
The team should, if they haven't, they very much should have rated him to say, you're not fighting that man behind you, you're not racing him, don't trip over him, because if Ralf gets too defensive, assuming his radio's working properly, they should have spoken to him. See, Ralph's locking wheels and all that, having a good fight with Hakkinen, doesn't need to do so.
So David Coulthard leads into Priory and Brooklands as he comes through to complete his 36th lap out of 60, with Eddie Irvine following closely in his wheel tracks. The gap in terms of time is about 0.3 of a second, I would think. You can see how close it is on the track. And they are now 3 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is fighting to stay ahead of Mika Hakkinen down in 16th position. Hakkinen again. In comes Hakkinen again into the pits. This is the third time he's clearly totally unhappy with the car and retires into the garage. No World Championship points for Schumacher, no World Championship points for Hakkinen. So that is going to delay things as far as Hakkinen is concerned, with the gap decreasing between him and Michael Schumacher. He's going to have races, of course, as that Schumacher recovers in hospital, but a sad Mika Hakkinen gets out of the car to retire for the third time in 8 races this year. and talks to Ron Dennis, the McLaren boss, about what is happening. So now we know that both McLarens are not going to finish this race. They are not going to get World Championships for both of them any more than Ferrari are, with Schumacher out.
Yes, Coulthard's still very much around, but I suspect Ron is saying, look, we can't be sure that the same thing can't happen again in a more critical part of the racetrack. We have decided to pull the car. A bit of blue smoke coming out of the back of Coulthard's car there. Pretty certain it was a locked front wheel, but Irvine absolutely relentless in his pursuit there of leader Coulthard. They're looking at the back of the car. They may have been able to see something on telemetry that suggests that the push rod loads in the left rear corner were not as they should be, and that there was something going wrong.
Well, meantime, you can see for yourselves that Eddie Irvine is not allowing David Coulthard to relax for one turn of the wheel. This race is vital to both of them. They both know they could win it. David Coulthard has not won a race this year. Eddie Irvine has. Coulthard would love to make it one. Irvine would love to make it two, and they are now 4 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is driving a quite superlative race.
Well, Irvine's much faster through Beckett's than Coulthard, so if he can get near enough, he's got a chance of going down in the slipstream down Hanger Straight. That's where Irvine is strongest. The rest of the lap, it's nip and tuck, with Coulthard probably having a little bit more traction on the slow corners.
So if Eddie Irvine could get ahead of David Coulthard, and that's not going to be easy, heaven knows, because David Coulthard can choose his line to make things very difficult indeed for Eddie Irvine. Both very experienced drivers. This is Coulthard's 82nd Grand Prix. It is Eddie Irvine's 89th Grand Prix. Look how close it is between them. Ralf Schumacher is still third. Frentzen is still fourth. Barrichello is still fifth. Damon Hill, yes, is still in the points, on target for one World Championship point, but Rubens Barrichello is harassing Frentzen and putting away from Damon Hill. 7th is Herbert, 8th is Deniz, 9th is Fisichella, 10th is Zanardi.
Well, he had a clear demonstration of Coulthard pulling away from Irvine in left field, the traction area of left field. Now watch Beckett's. Watch Irvine just screaming in. He's definitely able to carry more speed through there and close that gap back down to David. But in fact, he's a little bit further back this time than the lap before. But he's definitely able to make in there. And if he can get close enough, he might just get a snip of a slipstream.
Mika Häkkinen talking to his wife, Aya. Early bath for him. And back to Monaco, where they live. As David Coulthard goes into the Vale, brakes hard for the left-hander at approaching Club, the right-hander, and out of the pit lane goes Olivier Panis in the Prost. He's in 12th position now. And now we turn up to Abbey, climbing out of Club corner, the left-right at Abbey. Coulthard, Irvine into Bridge. Eddie Irvine is not closing at the present moment. We still don't know what the strategies are. We still don't know for sure whether that long pit stop of Eddie Irvine's was because he overran or because he took on extra fuel, or maybe a bit of both. So the strategy of the McLaren and the Ferrari teams for Coulthard and Irvine are going to decide the result of the British Grand Prix, provided both cars finish, of course.
Yes, the fact that Ferrari looked like they were getting ready to bring Eddie Irvine in again under that safety car situation does still suggest he has got to make one more pit stop.
I think you're right.
I'm trying to understand how much time he lost in that pit stop by coming in and locking his front wheels and skidding to the right, far right corner of his pit.
He took 11 seconds in comparison with most of them who were taking about 8.5. So he lost 2.5 seconds, and I would think, frankly, Martin, that you're right, that it was more because he overshot than because they might have put extra fuel in. Back with Damon, and look, you see, you can see ahead, you can't see Barrichello, and you can't see Frentzen, as Zanardi comes into the pits in the Williams. He's touring in.
He's just on his way out, actually. I think he's probably finished his stop there. We didn't see his stop, but he had just finished his stop and he was on his way out, rejoining at Copse.
So, Alex Zanardi was in 11th place. I think he would have kept it because Trulli was 16 seconds behind him. Now, Damon seeing... Here, this is the battle. There is the Stewart And there is Johnny Herbert. Now, Johnny Herbert in 7th position is 1.3 seconds behind Damon Hill, and he's catching the Englishman in his last British Grand Prix. There it is. Now, there is the yellow Jordan of Damon Hill. Behind him, the white Stewart of Johnny Herbert, who is another man who desperately needs a good finish. Stewart has had problem after problem. Herbert has had problem after problem with the Stewart this year. He's retired 5 times. We look down now at Ralf Schumacher in from 3rd position for his 2nd pit stop. Now, he will have undoubtedly lost that 3rd position as in comes the Stewart and out goes the winner.
It's Herbert in for a stop, so we're now again lap 40. You see 41. It is there. It's the sensible time to split the race up in many ways. So Herbert in with an 8.8 second stop. Not sensational, but not bad. That's the lead two.
2/3 race distance completed. They're on lap 41, 60-lap race. Coulthard and Irvine have stopped once. They've got to come in again, that is for sure. They didn't stop long enough to take on enough fuel to go through for the rest of the race. And David Coulthard leads into bridge from Irvine. As coming towards us are Frentzen and Rubens Barrichello, respectively 4th and 5th. And Barrichello driving magnificently. He's got 2/3 places behind him already this year. He's closing down the gap on Frentzen, but as ever, catching is one thing and getting past is quite another.
Murray, while you're explaining that, I can see the Ferrari mechanics out in the pit lane, and there he is in the pit lane.
Eddie Irvine into the pit for his 2nd stop. Now, the time for this is going to make the difference in this race. Locks up a bit. No. They're very well drilled indeed. James?
Yes, it was very neat. He came in very quickly. Michael Schumacher practices it all the time, coming into the pit lane and hitting that line where you hit the speed limiter. Irvine was bang on. Great stop.
Yes, I watched Eddie Irvine practicing that last week. It was terrifying, the speed he was taking into that pit lane. And that was a great stop. That might just give him track position over David Coulthard.
That won't help him very much that Deniz, or is it Alesi?
Alesi's rejoined, actually, if you're wondering what he's doing back on the track. He's a lap down, but he has rejoined. I think you'll find he'll move over and let that Ferrari through going into Stowe.
He's certainly fighting the car every inch of the way. It's Alesi. And Eddie Irvine jinks out from behind him and, yes, takes the track position. Eddie Irvine then a 7.1 second stop. So it's going to be critical how long it takes David Coulthard, and here he is.
Meanwhile, Coulthard does his fastest lap of the race, so Coulthard knows these are the crucial laps. I can't see too much track in front of him, but there's not a lot of traffic, certainly, for a couple more laps. So there's the mechanics ready. Will Coulthard duck in this very lap?
Well, seeing Coulthard come out, yes. They're sensibly bringing in the very next lap. He's done a very quick one in order to try to increase the gap. Now remember, Irvine was 7.1 seconds. It's going to be mighty, mighty close. I'm looking down the track as you look at David Coulthard. Oh, what a cracking stop. 6.3 seconds. He ought to rejoin in front of it. Here's Irvine. I can see Irvine exiting Woodcote. It's going to be mighty, mighty. There's Irvine. Now look,
Coulthard should stay in front on that. He did a fast in lap, and then he had a better pit stop, Murray.
So David Coulthard has retained the lead. It's a status quo, is exactly what it was before, and out of the race goes the 2nd BAR. Oh, it's a bad day for Brackley, which is where their headquarters is. Ricardo Rizonta retires, and it means that BAR have still only had one Grand Prix finish, and that was given to them by Mika Salo when he was replacing Ricardo Zonta. Meantime, Eddie Irvine cramming on the power.
Irvine's best shot now. Irvine's a lap into his run. Coulthard on fresh tyres, got to bring everything back up to temperature. If Irvine's going to make a move, it's got to be this lap, or he'll have to wait for some back markers later on. But this is his best chance, but Coulthard making a good job of this outlap.
Indeed he is. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine. Damon Hill is still in there, of course. He was momentarily up into 3rd position when Coulthard and Irvine were making their pit stops. That's not the situation anymore, and you can see what the lead battle is as they exit the last corner. And here coming towards us is Heinz Harald Frentzen, followed by Damon Hill, and we're now on lap 44 out of 60.
So Hill is actually currently second place, of course, Murray, because of the pit stop. So
and Frentzen is leading. Heinz Harald Frentzen leads the British Grand Prix. Damon Hill is in second place. But as I've said before, it's a bit of a false dawn because they've both got to come in. And there is the battle for the lead behind them, with Louise Goodman about to talk to Mika Hakkinen.
I am indeed. Mika, what was going on there? You're in and out of the pits, finally retirement. What was the problem?
You know, the race was going really well until, like you also on the television, my rear wheel came off. I thought first that the nut is not properly fixed in a car, so I thought, wow, you know, this is unusual for McLaren to have a problem like that. It never happened to me. So finally when the team did stop me and asked me to drive in the garage for safety reasons, they understood there is something else in the car. It was not. This is not the full statement. I'm sure you will hear the latest, but looks like it was nobody's mistake. It was just some kind of problem with the car, which sometimes happens.
Nasty moment when that red tire came off.
Luckily it was low speed corner, so I was not too scared.
Okay, now here's an interesting one. Remember, Frentzen was able to win the French Grand Prix by one stopping, by having he clearly had a bigger fuel tank on that Jordan than anybody else. At the moment you've got a Jordan 1-2. They both only one stop. I wonder how far they can go on the fuel they've got on board. I don't see any Jordan mechanics in the pit lane at all at the moment.
Well, meantime, you can see the first four in the same shot, because there is Frentzen leading. Damon Hill up to second place. David Coulthard, who has two-stopped, is third. Eddie Irvine, who is two-stopped, is fourth.
Jordan boys coming out now. Jordan mechanics out into the pit lane. So no fear that they can actually, there you see it for yourself, no fear they can run right to the end of the race, as Frentzen did to win the French Grand Prix.
Yeah, I would have been very surprised, taking into account Frentzen's first pit stop time, if they had been able to, but that was certainly not the case. So David Coulthard and Eddie Irvine getting ready to retake first and second places, but Damon Hill may still, if they bring Frentzen in first, we may still see Damon Hill leading his last British Grand Prix for a while, which would be a wonderful memory for us all to treasure. And that depends, of course, on the bringing Frentzen in first, and that is exactly what is happening. There is Heinz Harald Frentzen. Now let's rejoice in this. The crowd goes mad. Damon Hill leads the British Grand Prix. Yes, 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 I know he's not going to for very much longer, but Frentzen's stop is the one that you are looking at now. But on lap 46, Damon led his last British Grand Prix, 6.8 seconds for Heinz Harald Frentzen. And Damon Hill, I would expect to come in on the very next lap. But meantime, you are looking at world champion of 1996, 22 times a Grand Prix winner, Damon Hill leading at Silverstone, followed by David Coulthard and Eddie Irvine in second and third positions.
Okay, Damon Hill's radioing in, stop the race now, stop the race now. This is far enough, we'll settle for this. But Coulthard homing in. Coulthard seems very comfortable with this third and final set of tyres. He's really pulling away quite easily from Eddie Irvine. 2 or 3 tenths, yes, tremendous.
Yeah, I think we tend to forget that a different set of tyres can dramatically alter the performance of the car. Tyres are, after all, handmade, a lot of machinery involved, yes, but you can get one set different to the others, and that affects the performance of the car. Now, is Damon coming in this lap? I would expect him to, with Heinz Harald Frentzen having come in on the previous one. And yes, Damon turns into the pits to lose the leadership of the British Grand Prix, but never mind, he had it there, in his hand, under his foot, for a while. What a wonderful memory. And so now Coulthard leads, Irvine is in second position, and the next question is, I'm just trying to remember what the gap was between Frentzen and Hill, because can Damon Hill get into third position? No, Frentzen has gone through. Damon Hill is going to rejoin where he was before in fourth position behind his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Going to be very close when he got down there, actually.
Yeah.
Remember the Jordan pit's further along, and I bet there's not much in it, so Hill very much able to, of course we've had lots of safety car situations which has closed the field up, but Hill has kept Frentzen in sight all day, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. I think you're probably right, Murray. I think Frentzen would be in front, and there he is.
Interested to see how team orders go, because if Damon's got a chance of finishing on the podium, he may well grasp it.
Yeah, shame for Damon. It didn't quite leapfrog him in front of Barrichello, look. So Hill now having a drop back behind Frentzen and Barrichello, which is pretty much where he was before these pit stops all started.
So, deep breath again, lap 47. You're watching Heinz-Harald Frentzen third, Barrichello fourth, Damon Hill in fifth position. The race leader is David Coulthard, just ahead, 2.6 seconds, looking comfortable actually.
Look.
And David goes through and takes Barrichello. Wow!
Barrichello's broken down.
Barrichello's let go, the car's in trouble, but Damon Hill is now in fourth in, I've just lost track of where Ralf Schumacher is at the present moment, but that's rotten luck for Rubens Barrichello. He was going as he has done so well in the past, and it looks as though that's going to be his fourth retirement. Meantime, we're on lap 48, and yes, this is the battle I was trying to lead up to. Ralf Schumacher, as Barrichello comes into the pits, is in third position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is behind him.
Something sparking underneath the car, Murray, with Barrichello. Something, we saw a trail of sparks coming off, look. He's got a puncture, actually, I think is his problem. I think that what's happening is the rubbing strips are running along the ground. As soon as he touched the brakes, a completely unloaded right front. So it would have been a left rear puncture for Barrichello, and that's why you see him rejoining.
So that's good news. At least he is not out of the race. He's lost track position, of course, with very little chance of regaining it. Lost a lot of time coming into the pits, lost more time in the pits, because that was Rubens Barrichello's third stop. Now, lap 48, race leader, Coulthard. There he is. You saw in the background Eddie Irvine. Now, if this position continues, it's going to mean that in terms of the World Championship, McLaren are going to get 10 points to make them 62, and Ferrari are going to get 6 points to make them 64. That Ferrari would still be leading the Constructors' World Championship, but by a further decreased gap, because McLaren closed the gap in France. It looks as though they're closing it again, but they've still got to finish. Lap 49, Coulthard leads, Irvine second, Schumacher third, Frentzen fourth, Hill is fifth, Johnny Herbert is up into sixth position, and we're taking a break. to go, and you're watching the battle between Ralf Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen for 4th position. Johnny Herbert has been given a 10-second penalty for passing when the safety car was out, which I'm sure he did inadvertently. He's been in and he's taken that penalty, but it's dropped him out of the points, and Pedro Diniz is there in the Sauber. The order now on lap 51 out of 60. David Coulthard leads Eddie Irvine by a comfortable 3.5 seconds, looking very good indeed for his first Grand Prix win for a long time, to break McLaren's British Grand Prix drought of victories. Eddie Irvine second, Ralf Schumacher third. Right behind him is Frentzen, and there is the German. Damon Hill is still in the points. There he is in the background, and he's catching both the cars ahead of him. 5th position, Pedro Diniz is 6th. Damon Hill is going for it. We're with him now. He's cutting the gap between himself, Frentzen and Schumacher, who are 4th and 3rd.
Yes, I think Schumacher's struggling a little bit on this section of the race, and Frentzen's caught him, can't do much about him, and that's allowing Damon Hill to catch at about a half a second per lap. So there's going to be a good squabble. Damon Hill anytime soon. Well, he can now look. He can see a podium position just up the road in front of him at the 99 British Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Coulthard up front, as you're still on board with Hill, coming into bridge. Coulthard up front is eking out about 0.3 of a second per lap on Eddie Irvine. The lead up to 3.5. There is Coulthard now. Seems to be on his way.
Well, fingers crossed for the man from Twynham in Scotland, David Coulthard. He richly deserves this victory, as I said earlier on. He hasn't got it yet, of course, after all the misfortunes that he has had this year. He was beginning to be thought of as number 2 to Mika Häkkinen, when he's not. I've always said that in my head, David Coulthard is just as good a driver as Mika Häkkinen if he gets the brakes and he gets reliable machinery. He hasn't had that this year. He's got it here. He looks as though he's going to win the British Grand Prix.
A bit too early to say that, because his car's let him down a bit, as you've said before. Remember, Häkkinen nearly won this race a few years ago, and his car let him down 6 laps before the end. There's a long, long way to go yet, but Coulthard appears to have the pace, at least, to win the motor race.
Frentzen has got the pace to stay with, but not get past Ralf Schumacher. Damon Hill has got the pace to catch both of them. There's Schumacher 3rd on the right, Frentzen 4th on the left, and Schumacher exits the corner. Look for Damon Hill. You just saw a flash of him in the background. There he is. They're being delayed by a Lacey. Now, this is going to give Damon Hill the opportunity to catch his teammate and Ralf Schumacher. We're going to see a fantastic battle for the last step on the podium. In fact, we are looking at it as they go into Priory, into Brooklands, down to Luffield, round the right-hander, up to Woodcote, and a Lacey, if he doesn't get out of the way, is going to make it very difficult for them.
Yes, Herbert's stop-go penalty dropped him back to 13th place. What a shame. He was in 6th, all 4 Brits in the points, but Herbert, well, his luck just keeps deserting him as ever. Frentzen bearing down on Ralf Schumacher. Lacey, I wouldn't say he's holding them up yet, but he will be any time soon.
Well, let's just have a look at the lap times. Lacey's lapping in about 1:31, and they are lapping in 1:30 in round figures. They could lap a second a lap faster than him if they could get past him, which they can't at the present moment. Takagi has just been passed by Coulthard and Irvine. Now look ahead from Damon Hill's point of view, and those 2 spots you can see in front of him as a Lacey gives way and lets Schumacher and Frentzen through are the cars that Damon is targeting.
Yes, I hope Damon doesn't pick up the tail end of a Lacey going slowly into Stowe. I think a Lacey hopefully will just, as soon as he gets out of club, move out of the way, which is right as it happens, move to the right of the track and let Damon scorch around the outside and keep this little battle very much intact. Yes, he has done.
Well done, Jean. Up to Abbey, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Williams, Jordan. Yes, we're on lap 53. Coulthard is still leading, Irvine is still 2nd. Irvine has taken a bit of time out of David Coulthard on that lap. Very little, but just a 10th or so.
Yes, they both had to pass the arrows, Murray, so I don't know which arrows it was, but they both had to pass it, so I think it looks like, yes, Irvine getting the better of that.
Very quickly, retirements again. Michael Schumacher out, of course, broken leg. De La Rosa out, Badoer out, Villeneuve out, Mika Häkkinen out, Ricardo Zonta out, 16 out of the 21 who started are still running at Silverstone on lap 54 with 6 to go at the end of this one. And there is the race leader, 28-year-old David Coulthard. That is his girlfriend, Heidi, going through the worrying period that all women go through when they're standing in a garage or in the pit lane watching their man and knowing that in just a few laps' time he could have broken the spell that's been over him. Mika Häkkinen is coming out to the front of the garage, hopefully to see his teammate win the race, and Schumacher and Frentzen are even closer together, battling for third.
Yes, I think Häkkinen will be well pleased if Coulthard can win this. Remember how much Coulthard helped him in the second half of last year, following him behind him, supporting him to help him get that World Championship. So Häkkinen will not feel bitter at all about this at all if Coulthard can get through these last 6 laps.
Yes, we must not say he's going to win this race. We don't know. There's still some way to go, and you can never be sure in Formula One. Let's hope that Damon Hill, and look how much closer they are to Damon Hill. They being Frentzen, his teammate, which is that blob, and the one in front is Ralf Schumacher. 3rd, 4th and 5th, all in the same picture. 1st and 2nd would be if we were looking at them. The gap between Coulthard and Irvine is 3.2 seconds. We are on lap 55.
Yes, Irvine's now decided to start his final charge. His fastest lap of the race, a 1:28.7, gap down to 3.2. So Coulthard's going to have to step back on the gas a little bit to make sure he can win this motor race. There is Irvine coming over the Vale into club. He's decided now in his last few laps he's got to get on and try and push David into a mistake. David has got the faster car. He's got to pull out all the stops, and there you can see the gap for yourself.
Yes, you remember David Coulthard said on the grid to Louise, well, Eddie Irvine has got the mouth, and I hope that I will have the ability to win this race. It looks as though he may well have. Here is the order on lap 55. David Coulthard leads. Eddie Irvine, you're looking at, is 2nd. Schumacher 3rd. Frentzen 4th. Hill is still 5th. Deniz is 6th. Fisichella is 7th. Trulli is 8th. Wurz is 9th. Zanardi is 10th, and Barrichello is 11th. Panis is 12th, and Johnny Herbert 13th. They're all on the same lap. Alesi has been lapped, is 14th. So is Genet, 15th. Takagi has been lapped twice and is 16th. They are the runners, and we are now on lap 56.
Well, it was the rain in France that made it exciting. It was the crashes in Canada, but here it's been the pit stop and the strategy, hasn't it?
Indeed it has, and frankly, if David Coulthard can keep going the way he is going without any car problems, try as Eddie Irvine may, I can't see him closing down 3 seconds gap in the 4 laps that are left after this one, and getting past David Coulthard as well. Time will tell, and it's not going to be very much longer before we know the answer. Frentzen is striving now to get past Schumacher. He's tucked up right under the rear wing of the... Well, it's extended a bit because there, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and look how much closer Damon Hill is. Between the 3rd and the 5th cars, there are just about 4 seconds.
Well, I say again, driver of the day, Ralf Schumacher, for my money.
Yes, here, he's yet again driven an absolutely superlatively good race. Because let's remember too that the engine in Ralf Schumacher's Williams is nothing like as good as a customer engine as the Mugen Honda that is in Frentzen's car, the Mugen Honda that is in Damon Hill's car, let alone the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine and the Mercedes-Benz engine of David Coulthard. Great, great drive. Lap 57. 3 to go after this one.
Frentzen just missed his braking point there into Brooklyn's. For some reason, both Coulthard and Irvine were quite slow on that last lap, back into the 1:29. So whether there's a little bit of gravel on the track or a little bit of oil, we don't know. But they were both quite slow. The gap now down to 2.9. Not quite all over yet.
I was talking about Ralf Schumacher, and he's already had a 3rd place in Australia. He's had 3 4th places. He's had a 5th place. He's had a very reliable car. He's only failed to finish twice this year at the San Marino and Monaco Grand Prix. If he can get a 3rd place in this race, a podium position, the Schumacher family will be delighted, Williams will be delighted, Supertech will be delighted, and so of course will Ralf.
Back marker now for Coulthard in these remaining few laps, so Coulthard needs to clear that one quickly.
Marc Genet in the Minardi.
Yes, I think he's going to catch him in the complex, so hopefully Genet, being a bit of a new boy, hopefully he'll have his wits about him and see the two leaders coming up behind him. But remember, Coulthard passed Herbert in 95 to take the lead of this Grand Prix, but had a stop-and-go penalty after that.
Right.
So Coulthard has led the British Grand Prix before, nearly won it, but today he's got his best chance. He should just about have enough straight-line speed to pass that Minardi before the first corner. Yes,
yeah, clean as a whistle. Now Eddie Irvine's going to have the same problem. Genet is taking all his time to keep the Minardi on the road. It's his first Formula One race at Silverstone. Now watch Eddie Irvine close up on the Minardi. Look at the difference in power and speed between the Ultimate Works car and the very hard-trying Minardi team, who've got the latest evolution of the Ford V10 engine in it. But this is a bad time, and Eddie Irvine surges through. Lap 58, 2 to go at the end of this one. Irvine had closed the gap down to 2.4 seconds. Has he lost time?
Yes, I think Irvine was the net winner of that back marker, because Coulthard caught him and had to take a very tight line into Copse. Irvine having where it's much wider into Stowe, so I think that gap's going to come down a little bit, but Coulthard seems to still have enough pace.
There will only be 2 laps left of the British Grand Prix at the end of this one. They're on their 58th. There's a very close battle, just as close for 3rd position between Ralf Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, with Damon Hill in 5th position and not closing the gap on Frentzen at the present moment. Deniz is still in 6th position. Hopefully it looks like another point for Sauber. It's all tense in the McLaren garage. Is their 10-year drought of victories at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, going to be broken in the next few minutes? It certainly looks like it, because David Coulthard is on his 59th lap out of 60, holding the lead over Irvine, and that is Fisichella battling with Rubens Barrichello, who is surging. Remember, Barrichello had that problem, and he's now in 10th position.
Yeah, that was Barrichello. Yes, Barrichello recovering. Remember, he had that puncture and fell down the field from 5th place. So Barrichello recovering up to 10th place.
Yeah, and Barrichello's next target is Jarno Trulli. There is the Prost, which is in 8th position, so Barrichello is up to 9th place. Well, one can say that the Stewart Ford is maintaining the progress that it has been making all season. It's very bad luck for Barrichello that he got a puncture. And there's Ralf Schumacher, 3rd. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 4th. Damon Hill is 5th. Takagi in the background is 16th and has been lapped twice. And it looks rather as though Ralf Schumacher is going to manage to stave off Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Meantime, David Coulthard still naturally on that 59th lap out of 60. You're looking down at him now, and the gap between himself and the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine. 10 points potentially for Coulthard, 6 for Irvine.
Well, Coulthard had that bad start in the restart, but kept his head, didn't throw it off the road, didn't take a desperate lunge at Irvine, and when it mattered, Coulthard put in a couple of blistering laps to get track position, and I think that was a key part of it. He mustn't take it away from David. He really did do what he had to do, showed a lot of maturity. I don't think the car's exactly to his liking today, but he somehow made it stick at the right moments.
David Coulthard is a Scottish gentleman. He has never let the pressure get to him. He's not letting it get to him now. He's on the last lap of what has been a memorable British Grand Prix. Not for altogether the best of reasons, but this is certainly one of them. David Coulthard driving home. The Union Jacks and the Sultars, if there are any down there, and I'm sure there must be, are waving for David Coulthard and for McLaren, heading up for 10 World Championship points, which will bring McLaren within 2 points of Ferrari in the World Championship. And neither Mika Häkkinen nor Michael Schumacher, the 2 World Championship leaders, will have scored. Eddie Irvine will get 6 points to bring him onto the same number as Michael Schumacher. It has been a quite incredible British Grand Prix. We are now into Luffield 2. There is just Woodcote. And stand by, David Coulthard from Twynham, Scotland, wins the British Grand Prix for McLaren, and he beats Eddie Irvine by 1.8 seconds. Well done, David Coulthard. And Ralf Schumacher there is battling for third position in the closing stages of the race. Heinz-Harald Frentzen trying to take it away from them. Where is Damon Hill in the background? The answer is that he's 5 seconds down the road now. Damon has settled for 2 World Championship points as Schumacher finishes third. Frentzen finishes fourth. We're with Damon Hill now. This is the last in-car shot from Silverstone you're going to see with Damon Hill. The crowd rises and Damon Hill clips almost the pit wall to go up alongside his team and gives us a wonderful wave from the cockpit. The last time we'll see him at Silverstone. A great, great driver saying goodbye to his fans at Silverstone and everybody around the world from the British track. And David Coulthard says hello from the cockpit.
Well, if Coulthard's going to win a Grand Prix, his first one of the year, it may as well be the British Grand Prix. Tremendous effort there from Coulthard. That makes it his 5th Grand Prix win of his career. And is he going to enjoy this? He's got a barbecue going on tonight, I think, at his motorhome, and that'll be a very happy place to be. David Coulthard very much enjoying his down lap, his coming in lap. But if Damon Hill decides to leave, well, it looks like we've got a couple of tidy British drivers to go with after that.
Well, we've got 3 British drivers in the first 5 at Silverstone. And that's something to be very proud of indeed. Johnny Herbert, through no fault of his own, has dropped back and finishes in 12th position. Damon, on his rundown lap, waves to the crowd. And just to confirm the World Championship position, Mika Häkkinen is still on 40 points. Schumacher and Irvine for Ferrari do indeed share second place in the Drivers' World Championship with 32 points. We don't know how long Michael Schumacher is going to be out of Grand Prix racing, obviously, but it potentially means that Eddie Irvine will finish the 1999 World Championship ahead of Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 4th place in the Drivers' Championship, 4 points ahead of David Coulthard, who has leapt up to 5th position from 7th, where he started this morning. And Ralf Schumacher is a very worthy 6th. He's actually dropped a place as a result of the success of the others. Out of the car, in the Parc Fermé, Eddie Irvine sportingly congratulates David Coulthard, who waves his fists in victory and says, "I did it, I knew I could." Mika Häkkinen and Ron Dennis justifiably and rightly embrace the McLaren winner, and this means indeed that David Coulthard, well done David, yes, we can see you. Yeah, that's, if ever that was I knew I could do it, that was it. And it means that that 10-year drought at Silverstone for McLaren has been broken.
Well, all the Coulthard clan are here to see David take that magnificent victory, and I'm sure there'll be a few drams taken up in Twynham tonight. So great victory there, and Hill.
Rubens Barrichello congratulates Damon Hill. And Ferrari do indeed now continue to lead the Constructors' Championship, but, as I said, by just 2 points from McLaren, who've inched up race by race on McLaren. First of all, McLaren started off the season and looked unbeatable. Then McLaren got a run at them with those victories of Schumacher at San Marino and Monaco, and took the lead, held the lead in the Constructors' Championship, which they've had ever since the first race. And now Jordan are still third in the Constructors' Championship, a very strong third, because Williams are 12 points behind them in 4th place. Eddie Irvine's objective in Eddie Jordan's objective in 1999 was for his team to beat all the others in the Constructors' Championship, except Ferrari and McLaren, which he generously admitted he couldn't, and he's doing so. Podium winner, David Coulthard. Podium second, Eddie Irvine. And podium third, Ralf Schumacher. 3 absolutely superb drives
Very much so. Coulthard deserves that. He was the class of the field of the French Grand Prix, and a tiny regulator let him down. Here he is out on the top.
I got it wrong in France, I'll get it right here. The British national anthem for the winning constructor, McLaren. And the trophy is presented by the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, to David Coulthard. Wonderful gold trophy. The winning constructor, and it's Ron Dennis who gets the trophy from Neil Johnson, who is the chief executive of the RAC, and it's the RAC British Grand Prix. And John Quenby, who is the chief executive of the Motorsport Association, presents his trophy in his turn. Ralph Schumacher gets his trophy too from John Quenby. Well, a British Grand Prix we won't forget in a hurry. A brilliant victory for David Coulthard, a superb second place for Eddie Irvine. And now the champagne flows at Silverstone. Victory, second place, third place, David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine and Ralph Schumacher. Well done, all three.
Murray, and to Martin Brundle, and well done to race director Keith Mackenzie and his crew as well for coverage of the British Grand Prix. 2 hours and 25 minutes of high drama. 3 British drivers in the top 5, including Damon Hill. We'll be hearing from him very shortly. Still to come as well, a competition. That's Heidi, by the way, David Coulthard's Canadian model girlfriend, shedding a little tear as DC goes top of the podium. Yeah, it's a chance for you to win a trip to next year's Monaco Grand Prix. We'll have expert analysis from Tony Jardine. We'll get the drivers' verdicts as well. We will be right back.
Congratulations, gentlemen, the top 3 finishers at the British Grand Prix: David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine and Ralph Schumacher. David Coulthard, your 1999 British Grand Prix champion. How do you feel?
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know, when I realised after my team got me out in front of Eddie in the last stop that potentially, bar keeping out of trouble, I could win this one, it was more nerve-wracking, I think, than at any point in my career, because it's been such a long time since I had a win. And obviously with Mika out, I knew that the whole team was relying on me to score those points, but nonetheless I have to say this is definitely the best feeling I've ever had in my racing career. To win this race, I think, is, you know, always has been you know, the one that I would trade for any other win, to win in the British Grand Prix. So it's fantastic, and it's completely down to my mechanics today, who both times managed to get me out in front of Eddie. Otherwise, I think we were, he was a little quicker at the beginning, I was a little quicker at the end. We were pretty evenly matched, so whoever had track position was going to win this race today.
Even better than that, obviously with your two main rivals not scoring, do you think these 10 points put you right back in the championship again?
It's early days for that as well. I tend not to look at the big picture of the championship because you have to take each race as it comes, and clearly with 4 non-finishes this year, then it hasn't been going that well. But to come back here and obviously, you never want to benefit from an accident in one competitor. So obviously, I hope that Michael is okay, and I'm not sure of his injuries, but hopefully not too severe. And for Mika, obviously having a problem.
Thank you, David. Eddie, you were going well there, but you had a very long first pit stop. What happened?
Yeah, it was the first time I'd come into the pits really with the McLaren guys out, and I went past the McLaren guys, and next thing I see my guys very, very close to me, and I wasn't going to get stopped really, and I just overshot, and I think that's what took them that little bit longer to get the fuel on, and ultimately cost us the race.
You seem to be able to go a lot quicker, actually, in the race trim. Did you work on the car a lot since warm-up?
Warm-up, yeah, we just tried something. We just tried to make the tyres live longer, but it just wasn't. It was a no-hoper. We persevered with it all morning, but it wasn't going to happen, so we just went back to our standard setup.
Now, obviously, with the injury to Michael, you're now likely to be team leader for a few weeks, and you're actually in the World Championship hunt. How does that affect the way you look at the future races?
I don't know. I don't know what Michael's story is. I don't know. I think I heard he's all right, so he should be back in for the next race, and it'll be business as usual.
What actually happened on that first lap of the first part of the race?
Well, I got a better start. Michael made a really bad one, and I was getting a run at DC through the fast stuff, and DC has a very different line from me through the second part of the fast corners, and I had to lift off and brake to avoid getting to the back of him, and I went wide, and then I just come out onto the straight. Michael was obviously behind me, and then coming into the Stowe corner, he just came flying past me, all 4 wheels locked and straight on. So I don't know whether he maybe damaged a wing on the back of my car whenever I had to brake because of DC.
Ralph, a fantastic drive by you today, but how easy was it for you to get back into the car knowing your brother had just been injured?
Well, I mean, straight after the red flag, I asked what happened, and I first didn't realize what happened, and after Michael was having an accident, the team obviously said me that Michael was out of the car and was nothing bad, but I heard now that he got something broken. I'm not sure what happened. We're going to find out, but well, for 80% he seems to be all right, and that's the most important. And then we look what he has, and obviously he's not so nice as your brother have an accident to go back in the car, that's for sure. But at the other hand, I have a team relying on me, and I have to concentrate on my job.
You drove a great race, and you had a long battle Heinz-Hardt Frenz, and it seems the Williams has really improved this weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say our team, or my team, did a really great job bringing that new aero package here to the race. I mean, at the Silverstone test, we looked nowhere, and suddenly we were a lot closer, and especially the first pit stop, I have to thank my pit stop crew, because they did an incredible job bringing me out in front of Heinz, and from there on, the race went very good.
Ralph, thank you. David, we now go to Austria, where you put in a storming drive last year, I think from 17th place to second. Is that a circuit where you think you can close the gap even more on Mika?
Well, in the past we've been quite close around that circuit, so I would expect the same again. It's a relatively low-speed track, so I think that the Ferrari challenge will be as strong as ever, because I think they appear to have quite good mechanical grip.
Thank you, David and gentlemen. And Ralph, just a quick word in German, please.
Ja, ich hoffe natürlich in erster Linie, dass mein Bruder so schnell wie möglich wieder fit wird und dass es nichts Schlimmes ist. Ich weiß leider noch nicht 100%, was es ist. Davon abgesehen